Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a show about weirdos. Doggone it. My name is John Boy. I'm your host, John Francis Fahey. Joining me as ever is the gay gent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Dick Fury.
The gay gent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
The gay gent.
The gay gent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Dick
Fury. Imagine the fury of...
Oh, it's a fury.
There was once an idea to bring together a group of talented individuals and butt-fuck them.
Cool. Cool.
How are you?
I'm very good. That's Aaron Joseph Pita.
That's me. That's me. I'm here.
Hello.
To my right, your left.
Yeah.
Did we already do Fist Offerson?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Pissed Offerson?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know if we did fist.
Well, it's a quick switcher up.
Fist.
Or switcheroo.
Fist.
Yeah, the old switcheroo, huh?
Yeah, noted reptilian shapeshifter and star of Blade 1 and 2
Mm-hmm.
as Whistler.
Mm-hmm.
Pissed Offerson.
Yeah.
Cool.
Handsome Matt Brousseau. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Welcome back, John.
Thank you very much. I was in Georgia.
Wow.
Went to the Sasquatch Museum.
That's fucking tight.
It was a really tight tourist trap. One of the exhibits was just a huge piece of
I
shit.
was gonna ask if they had copper lights.
They had a big piece of shit. They're like, yo, check out Bigfoot's shit.
It smells excellent.
Yeah, there were some really good movies. One of my favorite things that happened there was this sleeveless hulking wonder of a man, you know? Real country boy.
Was it Bigfoot?
And he looked like a Bigfoot himself. And like, there's little rooms. There's like a documentary playing, and he's like, "Oh, there's this room." He's going up to his wife, and he's like, "There's this room in there playing this documentary about Bigfoot." And she goes, "Well, go in there and watch it. This is your thing."
Like a little kid.
Yeah,
they got that.
you want to
film.
watch the movie? Go in and watch.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here.
I'm gonna be in the gift shop looking at fucking keychain turds.
Dude, they had like a riff on the Salt Life with Squatch Life.
Yeah, I've seen that. Actually.
Squatch Life is tight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of kids' books. The ABCs of Bigfoot. Stuff like that. I should have got you one for your
That's very
your
nice.
little boy.
Yeah.
Josh Mueller did ask the important question. Now that Aaron's a dad, is he gay?
Of course.
Of course he
Yeah.
is.
Guys,
We don't discriminate here.
Yeah.
everyone's dad is gay.
Yeah, everyone's dad.
Even little babies.
Yeah. And the phone's for you.
Yeah.
Hello?
I bet you want to fucking grease up this hairy little shithole and just go bananas.
Oh, my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mom?
Miles?
Miles, you say this was for me?
Thanks. I've been waiting for this call all day.
Dad, who was that guy?
Shut up.
My new best friend.
You mind your own business. Play with your blocks.
Yeah.
You get him blocks yet?
Yeah, he's got blocks.
He's got
Cool.
blocks.
He's got blocks.
With the letters on?
Letters, pictures.
Oh, that's cool.
He likes those.
That's very good.
He likes also. He's got fucking way too many toys.
Spoiled.
He's crawling.
Crawling.
Hey,
today.
cool.
That's good.
Important.
Got to crawl before you walk.
Yeah, I mean, he really wants to stand up and walk around. You know.
Yeah.
He
wants
being
to-
stationary, bro.
He wants to flex.
Yeah, but he's got that.
He's gearing up for a fight with you.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
he's got, he's a couple years away from it, but I'm gonna be training.
Yeah, train.
You should,
Now is
yeah.
the time to train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's physically incapacitated right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You can get way ahead of him.
Yeah.
I got a head start.
Yeah.
Big time.
A few months.
Big time. You should just get bigger and bigger and bigger as he gets bigger. So he's
I can
like,
never catch up. to
Yeah.
this.
yeah. He's like, I don't think I can take this guy.
Yeah. You gotta
Smart.
have the psychological warfare.
Well, we do encourage him trying on this show.
And he will.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
I know you're gonna be listening to this in about 18 years.
Yeah.
Come at me, bro. I've been waiting.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of push-ups.
I've been watching a lot of Netflix. Matt, you have a tale to tell?
I do, John. And Aaron.
It's a Bigfoot tail.
He probably has been seen in the area.
All right.
Well, let's kick it off.
Kick it.
For centuries, none knew where it was born, though, of course, where it ultimately ended was obvious as the power and grandeur of it. It ran in some spots at 9 and 10 miles an hour, not just speed, strength, force unrelenting, and yet every year it changed. Every time you rode it remade. The wilderness surrounding it changed seasonally, and the stars shone bright as they ever would. But the twists and turns altered and adjusted themselves in an ever-changing world around it. It was dangerous, especially in the dark. In a world of torchlight, terror hid easily, if it had to hide at all. If it grabbed you, there was no help. You succumbed to the tragedy as easily as anyone else, a blade of grass in a windstorm.
Bigfoot the ride.
Mm-hmm. Despite all this, it was worth the ride. It was the greatest highway in the, quote, new world, a lifeline to a world of riches or an escape from the common expectations. The sights and sounds were proof of the majesty of God's creation as much of proof of his careless power. The new towns that sprang up around these areas took on the character of it. And then again, maybe you didn't pay attention to any of that because you were shit-pissed drunk your entire life. Guys, today I'm going to tell you the story of the early 1800s Mississippi River.
Oh, you steamboating son of a bitch, like you're gambling.
Mississippi.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of do it like the London one. You know, so we kind of meander around.
Oh, cool.
You know, here and there.
I bet it's full of piss and shit.
Oh, God.
And smoke and soot.
Yep.
Yeah. Browning out in Paris and London.
Ooh, boy.
Was very proud of that title.
Yeah, it's very good, John. And also, there was so many stories that I actually this time I actually kept track of the ones I'm going to do on Patreon. So I will actually do them on Patreon.
Hey, all right.
But my main source was Wicked River by Lee Sandlin. I read that book in 2 weeks. It was just the easiest fucking read I've ever done for this show. And also River of History by John Enfinson for the National Park Service. Various newspaper articles here and there.
Good old National Park Service.
Now, I'd like to drop you some facts about the river.
Don't drop them.
The river.
The name is derived from a French interpretation of the Anishinaabe title Mississippi, meaning Great River. Its smallest width is 20 feet where it begins in Lake Icsaca in northern Minnesota. It stretches to 11 miles wide, 50 miles downstream in Lake Winnebegoshish. 11 miles is pretty fucking huge.
Where is that?
That's also in Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's too big.
Yeah, it's 11 miles.
It's the river.
It gets as deep as 200 feet near Algiers Point in New Orleans, and it starts from only 18 inches. It carries 250 species of fish, 25% of all fish species in North America.
Wow.
And it's being riddled by the Asian carp these days. But who isn't? It's
Basically
America.
goldfish.
That's right.
Fucking giant-ass goldfish.
It's America's second longest river, a mile shorter than the Missouri, but the watershed is over twice as large, and it discharges 10 times the amount of water.
Nobody gives a shit about the Missouri.
Suck it, Missouri.
Well, you're a little bit
No, that's a
longer.
fucking huge river, too.
Yeah, but nobody gives a shit
Yeah.
about it. Everyone talks about the fucking mighty Mississippi, west of the Mississippi, east of the Mississippi. I mean, come on, the Missouri River.
Yes.
Aaron taking a hard stance on rivers.
This guy's got a long, thin one, but the Mississippi's got almost as long, but like fucking goith.
Goith.
Yeah.
Here's a little.
Look at that.
Here's a little picture of it.
Point out the Missouri on there. You can't point out the Mississippi.
I see the Ohio.
Dude, it's the fucking main vein on the cock of the continent.
It is highlighted, but
you see that fucking huge Missouri, too, man. That motherfucker goes all the way up to
It's
Canada.
longer, but it's not as thick.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or deep.
And it's not used as well.
Well, it's the motion of the ocean.
Yeah, eventually.
Man,
Eventually.
Look at all those rivers, dude.
Yeah.
It looks like an artery system.
Are they just highlighting the Mississippi?
Yes,
or is it...
they're highlighting the Mississippi.
Okay, so it's not
that thick.
actually that thick.
But it is.
See you just falling.
How thick? What's the...
It's twice as thick as the Missouri.
This guy falls for all kinds of AI shit. He's like, I saw Brad Pitt sucking Harrison Ford's cock today.
No, but a quick sidebar. I did find pictures of Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin naked for a photo shoot.
Nice.
In Palm Springs. Hey, fireworks, guys.
Yeah.
Hey.
For the gay stuff.
What?
For the gay stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And like Marcelo was telling me it's AI, it's Photoshop, it's bullshit. I'm like, I know it kind of looks like it. That's just because it's colorized. And I'll show you guys the photos.
Yeah, they all have 2 dicks.
Bro,
Yeah.
it's not. It's real. They were auctioned off. It
Cool.
was like a private collection, and they were like in the steam room, and
Hey, look, I got my dick out.
You just see Dean Martin's hog, you know,
Yeah.
and butt.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty nice.
Oh, a little
Does
bit.
his dick look drunk?
Yeah, it sang a song. Anyways, we could look at that on a Patreon.
Yeah.
Sure.
Definitely. We'll look at it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for tens of thousands of years and into the first half of the 19th century, the majority of the human inhabitants in the northern forest were American Indians. The first human footprint confirmation of the Americas in New Mexico was 21,000 years ago, if you're wondering how long they've may have been here. Eventually, the Chippewa on the east side of the river and the Sioux on the west, and then more whites showed up and taking their lands and breaking treaties and kicking them all out. And,
Yeah.
the French and Spanish were the first. French trappers officially licensed by the French government were called voyageurs.
Voyageurs.
And they were the first Europeans to, quote unquote, discover the river.
Yeah.
Because they were going everywhere to trap, and eventually the British would take it over, and then the Americans would have to kick the British out.
Right.
We're trapping.
The new towns on the river in the early 1800s, especially in the north, were small, maybe 200 people without roads and far from railroads. There's little oversight for children, and when they weren't in school, their free time was given to the Mississippi. Jumping, swimming, rafting, and rarely did they actually die during these things, but sometimes they did.
Of course.
Now, the wilderness on the banks could be even more dangerous than the river. One boy, I believe it was John Merrick, described being hunted by a pack of wolves,
Oh, fuck.
climbing a tree, and as they nipped at his heels for an hour, they eventually just got bored and wandered off.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
Don't move.
Stay there.
Now, in those days, most of the traffic
Don't
went...
sleep.
In those days, most of the traffic went downriver, of course. Barges with mining ore, furs, grain. More important boats were the ones that came upriver, because those carried essential supplies, salt, coffee beans, worth more than gold, those two, cured pork, beef, jerky, rice, axle grease. And when they showed up, the whole town would come out and unload everything, and then the boats would go off and never see them again. And every now and then, a kid would hop on one of these departing boats, and as far as the town was concerned, they were gone forever.
Yeah, he died.
They had a phrase.
What was his name again? I don't know. He was our 12th kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They had a phrase for anybody who left like that, and they said, gone on the river.
Yeah.
Now, those traveling the river in those days were sometimes still called voyageurs. Their boats carried anything they could get their hands on: apples, hemp, whiskey, pigs, turkeys, horse, cattle. Maybe their own town had a real good broom maker or famous brewer, and they usually leave in the fall after the harvest or before the spring thaw, or after the spring thaw.
Now, there's some. You said some of them were coming upriver,
Yes.
and that these are steam.
Not yet.
How are they going upriver?
We'll get to that.
Oh, dude.
Farts.
It's fart powered.
They farted themselves up.
They're gas powered.
Yeah.
Now, when these boats were leaving, sometimes a band would serenade them and the town would come out, and sometimes they also left in the dark at night, so no one knew what they had. And sometimes they could pick up cargo along the way, like let's say a farmer's not watching his sheep one afternoon. Boat pulls up, takes a couple of sheep,
Or his daughter.
and he's gone.
Yeah.
And as soon as the boat was around a bend, it never existed. Now, they would ride until they sold everything all the way down to New Orleans, and then they would just dump the boat and spend the rest of the year hiking their way back to where they started.
Hiking.
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln did that the first time in 1831. After a couple of trips like that, he said it taught him what it felt like to be a piece of driftwood.
Wow. It's like the world's longest water slide. Anyways, walk back up to the top.
It's exactly like that, Aaron.
See you in fucking 3 months.
If you're lucky. If you're lucky.
Hiking.
Yeah.
How long's the line? 3 months?
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it could be. Now, as you're riding it, most of the time you saw not a single other living person unless you stopped at a town. Every now and then, some guy would be standing on the shore.
Waving.
He would just wave a hand, and that was it. And that was the only thing you saw for maybe a day or 2 or 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Was there any flashers?
That would be somebody spinning his dick.
Yeah.
The natives might have been naked.
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty cool.
Semi-nude.
Yeah.
Topless. Full bar.
Yeah. Get off our land.
And get on this pussy.
Oh my God.
That's a good firework timing.
Neighborhood.
Anytime we say anything sexual, a huge explosion is going to happen outside.
Out and inside.
And inside, of course.
Now, the river had dangers, of course. Sandbars formed easily because the river moves so fast in the alluvian channel, the bottom, that it formed sandbars really naturally and really quickly and easily. And there was never the same one the next year. And if you got stuck, it could be weeks before the water rose or someone showed up to help you, and you were just there. Sometimes people just abandoned entire boats because it made no sense to just keep waiting around. All the food was getting bad anyway.
Oh my God.
Can't eat all these coffee beans.
That's right. There was also the natural debris and detritus. Giant trees caught in a bottleneck at a river turn. There's trees falling in this thing all the time. And they get stuck at a bottleneck. Sometimes those trees, dozens, sometimes hundreds of trees would together form a wooden island and careen down the river, destroying anything in its path.
Yeah.
And if you heard a giant creak and a grinding sound, you better watch out, because it might be coming right for your boat, and if it did, you would now be part of the wooden island.
Oh.
And you would be swallowed and dead. And the most dangerous trees, though, were not the ones that floated. It was ones that didn't move at all. They were called snags. They're ones that had fallen into the river and got stuck in the mud. Now, there's a bunch of different types of snags, too, and they had names for all of them.
Any of them racial?
Stop.
Honestly, oddly, no.
Not a one?
Come on.
A tree that was standing straight up in the river bottom with its branches just under the water line, that was called a planter. A tree that was stuck sideways into a riverbank or a sandbar so it stretched out full length under the water was a sleeper.
Yeah. Sleeper.
A tree that waved back and forth in the current with a sawing motion was a sawyer. And a tree that bobbed up and down, rising out of the water and plunging back in again, was known as a preacher, performing a baptism.
Oh.
And, of course, if you hit any of these, your boat was going to be capsized and destroyed.
Yeah, you're fucked.
How big are these boats?
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay, fuck.
Will you hold on?
Well, I'm trying to make a mental picture here.
We're all trying to do that.
I'm still just talking about just the river itself.
Okay, all right.
We'll get to the boats.
Now, does a river run through it?
Yes, river runs to it.
Huh.
A lot of them. Now, each of these snags also had a unique way of showing it, too, not just popping out of the water, but the current changed. So an experienced lookout would know the signs. A change in current, a trailing braid meant just a normal snag. A quilted ripple, a tangle of submerged logs. A fold in the undertow, as persistent swirling froth, was a whirlpool, where a tributary came in and created a vortex.
Oh, God.
It was believed...
Maelstrom.
Yeah.
It was believed that 20% of boats wrecked, sometimes leaving only a marooned corpse hanging on an island or bobbing in the water, the red shirt of the voyager telling the tale. They often wore red shirts.
Oh, is that where Star Trek got it from?
Yeah, maybe.
Fucking red shirt.
Yeah. Shouldn't have put that shirt on, pal.
Watch out, that thing's going to kill Guy.
Now, the air was clear and visibility was as good as your eyes. There was no light pollution, and you saw not just the constellations at night, but the full jeweled breadth of the Milky Way.
God damn, could you imagine?
Beautiful. And it had its unique sections, too. Some knew where they were in the river just based on the color or even how it tasted. It was sky blue in the far north, pine trees suckling on the banks, giving the water a, quote, pungent tang of pine oil. South of that, the water was deep blue-green in the woodlands of oak, elm, and maple. Then it reached the marshes of cattails and long stretches, miles of mussels in the banks.
Oh.
Marshes full of wading birds, and the water was so thick with fish, he said you could walk across it on their backs. In the sandstone bluffs further south in the prairies of Iowa, Illinois, the water was olive green with red wine stains in the shallows, tannin leaching from ancient bogs. On the shore, prairies full of wildflowers in the spring. In the summer, the grasses were 10 feet high and full of grazing animals. The sky full of passenger pigeons, so numerous it would take days for them to pass overhead.
Fuck. What a beautiful country this was.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Man, we fucked it up good, though.
Yeah.
Now, there was also, sometimes when you were riding through, the prairie might be on fire. And so you had to spend the whole time making sure that none of those embers landed on your boat and lit it aflame.
Fuck. Yeah. Get everybody on the side of the boat. Just
Yeah. Everybody blow. Not that hard. We're capsizing.
yeah.
In the Ohio, when the Ohio reached the Mississippi, the blue water was so rich with topsoil that in some lights it looked black. Its taste was velvety. It was said that if you drank enough of your sweat, it would be sweet as dew.
If you drank enough of the earth's sweat?
If you drank enough of the water, your sweat would be sweet as dew.
Oh.
And they said they...
So did they like
Everybody's tasting the river?
Yeah, they probably
Well,
had a cabin boy that they forced to drink the water just so that they could lick his sweat.
Yeah.
yeah,
And they're
right.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
native
that's
boy.
good, isn't it?
Yeah, keep drinking that water. I need to lick that sweat.
That's good.
Mm.
Make them sweat.
Make them drink some more.
Yeah. Now get them excited.
Get them some chili pepper.
Now the water down there was it was thick, and so if you really wanted to drink the clean water, you had to let it steep for about half an hour to an hour to get all of the dirt and sediment out of it.
Mm.
But
Good try,
the hardcore river people didn't do that. They'd scoop it into a bucket and just drink it straight. It was
Find the way it is.
It was called the true Mississippi relish.
The Mississippi. I like it. You give me a nice wiener. I get some of that Mississippi relish on it. Fine like this.
No, it's so good when there's a little bob and red shirt a little bit upstream.
Yeah, maybe a fingernail or something like that. Ooh. We call that the Delta sauerkraut. All the accumulated fingernails and broken teeth of the dead red shirts.
Yeah.
Delta sauerkraut.
You can get some red shirt cuticles coming
Ooh,
down.
you wash it down with a tall, warm glass of cabin boy sweat.
We got this cabin boy on a treadmill.
Yeah. And one of them Dune still suits.
Yeah, that's how they go upriver. Cabin boys on a treadmill, just powering them upstream.
Oh, actually, John, no, you will get there. You're not too far up.
Hey!
Now, as eventually they reach the forest growing more tropical, water oaks and water maples interspersed with catapas and wild cherries and tupelo gums. And when they finally got to the delta, the sloughs and bayous, marshes and swamps, they thickened, and the water became a pale luminous green like lime soda water. And it tasted reminiscent of bitter mildew.
Oh.
Well, pass on. We're going to pass on that one.
Now, sweet mildew I'll do.
That was the original name of Mountain Dew, was mildew. We had to change the name for branding purposes, but with that lime green color,
Yeah.
that neon iridescent highlighter color.
We didn't have
straight from
caffeine, so we put about a tablespoon of cocaine.
yeah, and that yellow number 5.
And it's a Baja Blast.
Code red.
Your kids are going to love it.
It's a 3-liter.
Now, the river itself is actually the formation and is quite rare actually, and this is from Sandlin. In hydrological terms, the Mississippi was something of a freak. It's a titanic volume of ungoverned water flowing across a floodplain, a very slight declivity. There are no mountain valleys to funnel it, or deep channels dug into the bedrock to keep it in place. It was traversing a flat and infinitely malleable surface of mud, silt, and clay, and this meant that it was free to move however and whenever its currents shifted. And so every year, there would be new twists and turns.
New shit.
And
Constantly updating.
It's like the water is trying to mount the land. Trying to breed it.
Breed it?
What?
John.
That's what those they're getting all these new little creeks and streams.
Okay, all right.
You can do with the fucking metaphor, man. Come on.
I guess.
And so
Simile?
here's a U.S.
Oh God, it looks like a fucking Pollock painting.
Is this a Jack Kirby?
And so this is a map. All these will be on the Patreon. This is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers map of how the river meandered over the years in just this one area.
Wow.
And so all of those are swirls that were part of the river in various times.
Wow. I mean, you can't navigate something like that.
You just learn how. It was a big point of conversation every year was the river doing this year?
Yeah, where's the river going this year? Yeah.
Pretty much.
Buy the ticket, take the ride.
Yeah, every year the I-10 it's got to...
Yeah, it's just like, where does it
It
go?
loops around,
Where does it-
Amarillo now.
Yeah, and it kind of keeps looping around it,
Yeah.
and you stay on it.
And that red shirt guy's still there, though. I don't know.
And he's emaciated.
Now, because the river itself was used as a border, these changes in the river made it very tricky, especially for slavers.
Oh, God.
They might go to bed and wake up the next morning and find their boat was now in a free state and all their slaves were free.
Oh, my God.
A real problem, huh?
Yeah.
Pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
So the river.
Sorry, boss. We're out of here.
It's going to take an act of God to make you a free man. Well,
Shit.
Yeah.
The river, its nickname was the Devil's River, but the slavers like to call it the Abolitionist River. Because
Which is worse.
Yes, in their mind, abolitionist was worse than the devil.
Oh, my God. But that means that God is on the side of abolition.
unless you're on the other side of the river and it moves over to your side.
Yeah.
And you were a free man.
But it would also seem to be that it would be kind of the cause of great farmland disputes.
Or I mean, like borderline.
Borders just mean war. If it changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to build a farm.
Yeah, you don't
like
build,
super close to the edge.
It's not the Nile, for Christ's sake. You know what I'm saying?
No, but it's got to affect something in a way that is,
Well, I mean, for this part at least, there wasn't any American land on the west side of the river.
Right.
Eventually, I mean, with the Louisiana Purchase, then it would expand that. But originally, no, and then I don't think the states fought over that sort of thing. It just wasn't worth them.
Yeah, they're like, this thing's fucking crazy,
You
man.
can't fight the river.
You can't.
No, and also the river, the river was known to flood. The native tribes called it a snake and they said every 7 years the snake would wake up and start thrashing around.
Damn.
And they were actually pretty close. It is about every 7 years on average that it does flood. And it would flood for thousands of square miles along its banks. The flood of 1844 is still the largest ever flood in at least the Mississippi River, if not the United States. It soaked St. Louis up to 7 inches of water, brought on by 40 days and nights of rain and the ice melt.
It's biblical, man.
Yeah. And then, there's a lot of weird weather out there, too. There's freak thunderstorms they call downspouts. We probably call them microbursts today. The rain would come down so hard you had to cup your hand over your nose to keep breathing.
Jesus Christ.
A lot of hats in those days.
In 95.
And the grasses on sometimes a freak wind or something might blow the brazier with the fire on your boat. And
the brazier.
Brazier. Is that how you pronounce it?
Brazier. A brazier is...
I know.
I mean, if you could blow up a brazier... Brazier.
Okay, thank you. It might just knock it on and light your boat on fire, and then if you had any cattle on there, they would stampede all over the place.
Yeah, they go nuts.
And with the grasses on the shore over 10 feet high, every now and then someone would go ashore, get lost, and you wouldn't be able to find their body until the fall when the grasses were all dwindled again.
Hey!
There he is.
Look at him with his red shirt on.
That's blood.
Fucking clown.
And especially in the north, if you fell in the river for more than a few minutes, you would die of hypothermia.
God damn.
And it didn't matter. There's no one on board that was going to be able to stop and rescue you anyway.
Yeah, nobody can swim.
No.
Now, the boats. Now, the basic boat was the flat boat. It was 10 to 15 feet on one side and could go up to 30 or 40 feet long.
Yeah, this is one of them Huck Finn type of boats.
And is it flat to avoid the trees?
It's flat because sometimes, there'd be points in the river where there'd be 6 inches of clearance.
Yeah.
God damn it.
And so it was just convenient. Also, it's really cheap. And when you got all the way down at the end of the delta, you just throw it away. And
they got fucking horses on it?
Mm-hmm.
They must be fucking having the time of their lives.
And there's also
what the hell is this shit?
The second most used boat at that time was the keel boat.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's a cutie.
Which is a little bit of a
more boat-like.
Yeah, a little more boat-like. You put a sail on it and
just for looks.
Yeah.
There were also merchant boats, just a floating merchant going down the river selling stuff.
Oh.
And they would tie up and display their wares, advertise their work. There was kitchenware and cabinetry, furniture, booksellers, greenhouses.
Regular thoroughfare.
That's right.
Pickles, probably.
Tacos?
Probably pickles.
Yeah.
Tacos, maybe?
I like to think about pickles.
I like to think about that sauerkraut.
There's one boat, at least more than one boat that was a working smithy. He would go town to town and make tools for you or whatever you needed. There's a Daguerreotype studio taking formal portraits wherever they stopped. Doctors, showboats of traveling actors, musicians, gambling boats, and brothel boats. The brothel boats would also be called gunboats. And the gambling boats and brothel boats would tie up down from the town, and then eventually the quote-unquote vigilance committee would come and run them out.
Get out of here!
Give me a free sample or you're gone.
Yeah.
Get out of here with your good pussy!
And your merriments.
and sometimes you might see just an entire house on a boat, some old lady knitting, rocking on a chair as it goes down the river.
Not even knowing she's on a boat. That's the life.
That is.
There were, of course, also the slave boats.
What?
They were often shunned by the river people from Sandland who took slavery for granted and held the abolitionist movement in contempt, but viewed the slave trade as dirty business. The men who ran the slave boats were called soul drivers.
It's a cool name.
Yeah. Now, before steamboats...
It's like Ghost Rider.
Soul driver.
Soul driver.
Yeah.
Before steamboats, it was incredibly hard to travel upriver. There were some various creative attempts, sails, of course, or oars if the wind was against you or not working. There were paddle wheel boats powered by hand-cranked treadmills or powered by horse and cattle on treadmills.
Huh.
Oh.
Horses to work, man.
Yeah. Now, the keel boats would do a thing.
Now, is that to go upriver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The keel boats would do a thing called
Go
poling.
downriver real fast.
That would be also awesome.
Yeah.
So this is one thing the keel boats did called poling. A line of men on the side of the boat nearest the shore would take a long iron-shoed pole and stick it in the mud. And as a line, the men would press on the pole and march towards the back of the boat and then get back in the line and do it again and again and again.
Damn.
It was pretty...
It's basically like Fury River.
Yeah, this is Mad Max.
Fury River.
Large
Dick Fury River.
I got my eye on you.
Large barges would throw an anchor into the shallows, run a line around a tree or a boulder, and then out to a tugboat, which would pull them up. Or if they didn't have a tugboat, they would do the same thing, and then guys on the boat would pull the rope and pull them up. Or they would just get off and grab bushes or trees and pull themselves north.
Now, the tugboat, they jerk you off on.
Yeah.
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 Well, it's a massage.
They give you a massage
parlor boat.
first, yeah.
You would just but if you went ashore and you pulled and you held the rope and you pulled on trees or you're on the boat and you grabbed trees, that was called bushwhacking.
Hey.
And if there was none of that available, the crew would just go ashore and drag the boat holding a rope. This was called cordelling, and you were lucky if you did 10 miles a day.
You gotta go up the river, man.
Meanwhile, you could do 100 miles a day going south.
That's so cool.
There were plenty of times where none of these worked, and the boat was just stuck for days or weeks, or it was just abandoned.
Fuck it, man. Let's
Nah.
move on. Start a new life.
Yeah.
I have kids, so what?
Let's get out here.
What about you and me just broke back it, you know? Going to this Brokeback River. Stem the roads.
Maybe me and you should broke back. Just stay here and fuck each other.
It's getting dark.
Why don't you man over to here?
We better just nestle under this tree.
We are nestled under the sparkling jewels of the Milky Way, and
Like, how did this river bring us here?
this river broke us. We tried.
We tried to live in God's light, but this feels so good.
It's day 3.
Forget it.
Forget it, they dead. They as good as dead now. It's just you and me.
I ain't no red shirt.
I don't even wear a shirt.
Now, at dusk, any boats around each other would all dock together and tie themselves up and become a floating city. The crew of each walking around, drinking, singing, fighting. It wasn't unusual for a voyager to drink himself into a blind, belligerent stupor every single night of his life.
Spray paint chrome on his mouth. Go crazy. I'm waiting, Joey.
Born to die.
At night, they would then move to the shore. If they were near a town, they would get off. The towns didn't want them, for the most part, especially they don't mind if they stop and sell their stuff. They don't want them staying there.
Move along.
Move on now.
And often they would have a guard stationed on the dock with a gun to make sure they didn't get too close to the town.
These are river folk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some towns just, what they did is they basically they let a shanty town be built
On the out, just on
near the
other-
river, and then they built the town they wanted just
This
a little
town-
bit away from
The
it.
shanty town's good for you. The
Yeah.
river
Yeah.
folk get the shanty.
Well, like, it's just a thing of, like, anything that is, like, gypsy-esque, movement. It's like, all right, well, they're moving, so they'll probably take our stuff. We're settled.
Yeah.
And so we'd prefer it if the people that are moving along and not
Continue to move.
yeah, and just didn't get too close to our stuff.
Plus, you never know who you're getting, and we'll get to stranger danger later.
I thought that wouldn't happen until the 1980s.
I don't want them bringing new ideas to this town.
Like, giving my wife all crazy notions of education.
Yeah, questioning gender and shit like that.
There's 4 genders. That's it.
And that's it. And from time to time, you broke back it with your buddy if the tide is too high.
Man, woman, mermaid, centaur. That's it.
Like God intended.
Just like in them old fables.
If you hear of a town that has like a land, like Natchez Landing, that was where the rabble went.
King's Landing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Knots Landing.
When the sun rose, a wooden river horn would ring out, and the boats would all depart. And all of them assumed that they would never see each other again. And they're probably right. It's very rare you ever saw the same person twice from another boat.
A lot of venereal disease.
Yeah. Sandlin says, the river didn't encourage lasting friendships.
Oh.
Now, the river's the only thing people had to talk about in those days. It was a watery news network. Like any highway.
The Watery News Network. If you're joining us, this WAM is something. We don't have clocks around here, but it's night.
Yeah. I hear splashing.
We're going live to naked guy on the riverbank waving his dick around. Naked guy with his dick waving around. What do you see? Out of sight.
Now the biggest talk in the early years were the pirates. Specifically,
River pirates?
Oh, yeah.
Specifically the crow's nest. Now there were pirates. Every now and then there would be directions on the river. Maybe a sign painted with an arrow or say warning like watch out for this stuff. Go this way. Most voyagers didn't pay any attention to them because anything that set them off of the river a little bit, they figured was a trap.
Yeah. It's like, hey, people are gonna rob you if you go this way.
Yeah.
Please come here.
Yeah.
I want to rob you so bad. Maybe butt fuck you.
Well, what they would do.
What do you mean no?
No butt pirates?
No, they wouldn't butt fuck you. It was
No butt pirates.
no, not until the 1880s.
Oh.
So the most famous was the Crow's Nest. It was about 175 miles north of Natchez, Mississippi, and it's about near the north border of Louisiana. And they had multiple ways of hunting their prey. Of course, there was the signs and tricking them to come down into their little inlet. But they would also, if there was a boat nearby at night, they might sneak aboard, drill holes into the hull, wait for the boat to sink,
Stick their dick in the hole.
fill it up with cum.
It'll slicken the boat out.
There's a sign that says, Glory Hole Landing just around the river bend. Guys, you gotta go.
Yeah. Could be a mermaid down here sucking my dick. Or a centaur.
I'm not gay. I only let women suck my dick and mermaids.
Yeah.
And my friend.
And occasional mermen, because they're basically women.
Yeah.
So they could pretend to be a broken down boat, or they'd sneak aboard your ship and attack you once it started sinking. What they would do, the victims were almost never found because the pirates would gut them and fill their body with rocks and then sink them.
God.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That is some dedication, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, a crew from a town did go and kill all of them, but then the next year there was a whole other group.
Cockroaches.
God damn. That's wild.
Yeah. It got so
Power
bad.
vacuum.
I'll tell you, man, that town, though, they built community there.
Yeah.
They built big time. They were like, remember when we killed all those fucking pirates? That was the time of my life, man.
I was scared to death.
the viscera and just...
I still have nightmares about it, man. I love you guys.
Let's play bocce ball.
Let's broke back it.
Fuck it. We didn't.
Something to get the image of entrails out of my mind.
No, it actually got so bad the governor of the Louisiana Territory banned unlashed boats from going on the nearby river, ruling that only convoys of 10 or more boats could ride past the Crow's Nest.
For safety?
Yes.
And the Crow's Nest was just like an outcrop, like a point?
Yeah.
A promontory?
It was like a little inlet.
And what would unlashed mean?
Like
a solo-
just a solo boat.
Solo
Yeah.
vessel.
Yeah. September 1811, A comet was visible from the river and it didn't blip out, growing brighter and its tail ever lengthening into half the sky. Eventually, a halo as large as the moon surrounded it. It was visible for over 200 days. It was a very famous comet in those days. That's right, Aaron. It was an ill omen. At some point later in that year, all the squirrels ran south by the thousands.
What the fuck?
And then December 16th, 1811, came the Great Shakes. It began in what is now northwest Arkansas. A large 7.2 to 8.2 shock felt strongly over 50,000 square miles and moderately over 1 million square miles.
How do they know it was 8.2?
7.2 to 8.2. You can measure in the geologic record.
Yeah. I know, but still.
6 hours later...
He just doubts anything about history. He thinks nothing impressive happened.
Oh,
if
they
it,
broke back.
if it wasn't post-television.
No, I understand that there are you can measure in the geologic record, but it's like,
You just think it's a bunch of podunk people going, it must have been upwards of 9.9.
14, umpteen point, something or other.
Niner.
Niner. No, I understand there's science behind it, but it's like, oh, it's the hottest temperature on record. It's like, you trust in fucking 1712 thermometers? I don't trust. I got fucking 15 temperature thermometers at work. They all say something different. You know?
Yeah.
Now,
But it's a hot one.
Hot ones. Check it out on YouTube.
No.
Hot ones?
Check us out.
Well, yeah, we're gonna do our own hot ones.
We are?
Yeah, where we're eating calamari, but it's actually foreskin. dipped in fucking,
Oh, that's right.
That's good.
Sriracha.
Yeah. I should stick this foreskin in a pig butthole.
Joke's the same thing.
it felt strongly over 1 million square miles. And then 6 hours later came another jolt. This is from Sandlin. First, there was a new sound, a hissing roar that was, according to one witness, like the escape of steam from a boiler. Then the surface of the river shivered, stirred, and erupted in violent swells. The boats were heaved by wild convulsions. Men clung on desperately. All around them, the banks and sandbars were collapsing. Cottonwood trees along the shore were hurled into the surf, tossing their arms to and fro, what one witness remembered as if sensible of the danger. The crews in the boat maneuvered frantically to keep their boats in the middle of the channel as far away from the sandbars and falling debris as possible. The river was coming blood red with the clay churned up from the bottom. And then it calmed, and then there were more aftershocks. And the aftershocks would go on for days and weeks. And what is it?
Do you not believe that either?
No, I believe it.
One traveler recorded 27 in the space of 12 hours. A doctor keeping track in Louisville that winter counted almost 2,000.
Oh, he's full of shit.
Yeah, he had the DTs.
Yeah, he's like, it's shaking again. You guys see that? Fucking pink elephants.
I got a fine surgical hand.
That incision looks just like the Mississippi.
Another one happened in January. 7.0 to 8.0 followed the Missouri boot heel. It's a little geologic area there. And it caused a rupture in another fault, which caused another earthquake in February 7th, 1812, that in New Madrid, Missouri. It was 7.4 to 8.6, and the entire town was destroyed.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a big earthquakes, man.
Yeah.
Imagine somebody getting to Missouri and being like, this is like Madrid. It's just like Madrid.
Maybe the Spanish
in
name.
Missouri.
I mean, it could have been a Spanish.
Yeah.
There's probably some white guy who's like, look at all these Mexicans. Let's call it Madrid.
Yeah. The one positive about the quakes, though, the crow's nest disappeared completely. It was swallowed up by the river, and they never came back.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Things change.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's like one guy's story. Sandlin goes into he'll talk about the river, and then he'll go here's some guys.
Let me tell you a yarn.
This is the story of Timothy Flint, a missionary, made his way to the Mississippi Valley in 1815. He was born in Massachusetts in 1780 and trained as a conservative Puritan. St. Charles, Missouri, however, where he found himself, was not open to his ideas. On Sundays, they liked to work, dance, party, and laugh out loud in public. It drew him into a rage.
Yes.
LOLing?
Yeah. Yes, Chad.
Everybody's LOLing here.
I can't stand it.
WTF.
Yeah.
He pissed off the town by buying up a forested area the citizens used for firewood, and then he tried to prosecute them for trespassing. And then he got sick. Measles, influenza, smallpox,
Fucking idiot.
fevers, and infections.
Pray it away, bro.
At one
Miserable.
Oils.
At one point, he had shivers and a fever for 60 straight days.
He counted 2,000 aftershocks.
So he gave up on the church in St. Charles, and he spent the next decade wandering up and down the river with his wife Abigail and their children.
Wife and children?
Yep. He's a pious man.
They all got sick, right? I mean,
Well-
they're hanging around this asshole.
In 1820, they made the mistake of trying to go upriver in unusually low water. They thought it would take a few days to turn into weeks. There was
Nobody laughed.
I know where I'm going.
Daddy's got this figured out.
Yeah. He won't ask for directions.
You won't hire an Indian guide. He's trying to ford the river.
There was very little wind, and he got stuck in a sandbar, and with several hundred miles left. The original plan was to buy supplies from passing boats, but a boat didn't pass for 8 days. When it did, it offered him a barrel of salt pork and a barrel of flour for $30 each, about $600 today. He was so pissed about it that 10 years later, when he wrote his autobiography, he gave them a scolding.
Yeah.
He had some strong.
And he was like,
Yeah.
let me tell you, this happened a decade ago, but I am not over it. Can you imagine?
A barrel of pork?
Salt pork.
What am I going to do?
Pork barrel?
It's a pork barrel, yeah. Now, they were staying in a cove while their boat was stuck. It was November, but it was still brutally hot, and the air was thick with skeeters.
Skaters.
A storm started approaching, and Abigail went into labor.
No, my God, in heaven.
Yeah.
One of those malaria Zika babies? With the heads, you know?
Yeah, with the heads.
Well,
From like Freaks.
Yeah, and all you got to feed it is battered pork.
fucking bacon tempura.
now
Bon appetit!
on the
Gobble gobble.
on the land surrounding them, it was sandbars and a swamp. And he lashed his boat to a tree, and he gave his children blankets as the storm approached, and told them to go lay down on the sandbar.
Smallpox blankets.
And he tried to take care of his wife inside of the one room they had on the boat. She now had a fever, and she was given calomel, mercury chloride mixture.
Oh, Lord.
At noon, the storm opened up with hail, lightning, and torrential rain. Thankfully, Abigail was pretty chill.
Nice.
You know, mercury chloride will do that to you. Really take the edge off.
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, it really takes the edge off.
For sure.
Does it really?
When you're not shitting your brains out, yeah.
It
It kind well, it doesn't like you kind of like you just kind of
okay. I wasn't
you're
sure if
fucked
it was
up.
like I know they used to prescribe.
Your body's in total upheaval.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you're also giving birth.
yeah.
I don't know what it does to you. Yeah.
And it just put her in kind of like a wispy,
Okay,
like
cool.
dreamlike state,
Cool,
which
very
is
cool.
probably a really cool time.
Let's put some of that river relish in there.
Yeah.
Flint himself thought that her just languid nature during this time was proof of her sanctity, not understanding how calomel works. The storm grew worse, and wind tore the roof off the boathouse, then poured down upon both of them. They kept raging until late afternoon, dying out in a beautiful sunset.
Oh.
Abigail gave birth that night. The child died 2 days later.
Oh, dear God.
Flint emptied out a small chest and buried the baby along the bank. The next day, the river rose, the wind picked up, and him and the remaining family made their way north.
Anyways.
1 in 5 boats didn't survive. It was worse for kids. The belief was that 1 in 4 children died before their first birthday, and 1 in 2 died before age 21.
Lord.
And this is people who are just like river people.
Yeah.
Because there were people that just
What about getting off?
taking a hike inland,
How many people got off?
getting off. The
Just
Fury
get
Road.
off. Just get off.
The river?
Yeah.
No.
The river is all there is.
Those townsfolk didn't want you.
1 in 5 goes down?
1 in 5 boats, 1 in 4 kids.
Yeah. I mean, like,
It's river world, man.
But you could make a lot of money at work in the river. There's nothing in the fucking town.
well, nothing means more than money.
You can buy a new kid.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I kind of described the attitude. Sandlin describes it here. He said Flint had a certain natural callousness. He was unmoved by the suffering and death of others, and part of that could be his church doctrine. But he says this is actually fairly typical of the inhabitant of the valley, the river valley. People did not, as a rule, display a lot of empathy for other people's problems. The river discouraged it. Life on the river was so dangerous, so unpredictable, and so casually violent, it couldn't help but leave its inhabitants coarsened. Flint doesn't seem to have been interested in what other people to start with, and the river never taught him to feel otherwise. It said, as a minister, his main concern was simple outward obedience to church doctrine. As a father, he viewed the death of his child primarily as an occasion to reflect on his own mortality. This all made the river his natural home.
He's like, man, I might die. That would be whack.
Yeah, because I have a whole life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He didn't fucking miss nothing.
It's like, what was I going to give this kid? Some bacon tempura? That's all I got. I paid a steep price for it, too.
He got out easy, if you ask me.
He's more outraged about the price of the pork than the death of his child.
Yes, I mean, he would write that every time he knew where the bend where they buried the body, and every time he would feel something every time he went past it.
A bump.
He was a big child.
Oh, Sally. Anyways, any more of that hot tempura point?
He went, but he and his family. I don't know what happened to the rest of the family later. Did have at least one son that lived.
Great.
He went on to get run out of various towns for being a bothersome bummer over the next 5 years until he published a book titled "Recollections of the Last 10 Years Passed in Occasional Residences and Journeying in the Valley of the Mississippi." It became a huge success,
What?
and he stopped preaching. His health returned, and he became an early pioneer in American writing.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
He was even in Natchez during the Great Tornado of 1840.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
It was the second deadliest in U.S. history, still is.
Shit.
It walked its way up the river, stripping trees from both banks. It reached Natchez, threw 116 boats into the river before ripping through town. The air was black with...
Dude, tearing trees out
from both banks.
is nuts.
Yeah.
Tornadoes are so cool. Twisters, the sequel to Twister in theaters.
See it in Climax.
Yeah. Featuring that guy from Top Gun.
Yeah.
Is the description of the town. The air was black with whirling eddies of walls, roofs, chimneys, and huge timbers from distant ruins, all shot through the air as if thrown from a mighty catapult. 48 people died on land and 269 on the river before the storm hit the rural portions of Concordia Parish, Louisiana, and killed hundreds upon hundreds of slaves. The exact figure is not known, and they were not counted at the time.
Yeah, the exact figures was not cared about.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't go to voting, counts, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, do you multiply by 3/5?
No, that's only when you have vote for representation.
Okay.
A few months after surviving that tornado, Flint died at the age of 60, back east with fever and chills. Kind of his thing.
Yeah.
The aftershocks.
Now, the callous nature that Sandlin describes wasn't just about the river itself and the people on the river. The majority of towns are run with a basic blatant disregard for the cares of others. There are no schools or hospitals, few roads, little public sanitation, or law enforcement. And there's also random currency. So you never knew.
You see bottle caps here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bazooka Joe.
Shoot up.
How did this guy catch up with the fucking printing press boat to get his book out?
Yeah.
The fuck?
No, you move to a big enough town, and you print it.
The town they let you in.
Yeah, or you find there were some publishers.
Y'all hospitable to river folk here? I got a tale to tell.
You telling me my pork tempura is no good currency, yo?
No,
Uh,
You tell me my snail shells don't spend money in this town?
I got my baby a 21-gun salute funeral for 3 pounds of pork tempura.
no,
21.
So in these towns, it was just, people just lived, but there wasn't really much, there wasn't any authority necessarily.
This is awesome.
Yeah, it was free. But a river guy when you see him, you're like, oh, here we
Yeah,
go.
he's got a fucking river mud mustache, drinking it all day.
The towns themselves weren't really that different. They didn't like the river people because they were strangers. But
Yeah.
the towns themselves still had, it was Sandlin describes as people were guided by their own sense of their natural rights because in most cases they had absolutely nothing else to go on. So everybody, they believed, they did their own research.
They were anarchists.
Yeah, in a way.
I mean, their fucking dad is a centaur. Their mother's a mermaid. These guys have their own fucking rules.
Yeah, they all use one bathroom. The river.
Yeah. And that's why the relish is so good.
Oh, it's a sweet relish.
Now, the moral anarchy in these early years caused an abrupt pendulum swing in later years, and that leads to eventually the South would get the reputation, as Sandlin writes, of suffocating primness, because it was so chaotic that as the pendulum swung back, that was the
They had
result.
to become Southern gentlemen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes. That's Sandlin's belief, at least.
It's interesting.
It is interesting. So they got to start talking like this here.
We gotta start drinking mint juice. We gotta put down the relish jug and pick up the julep glass. Start walking with a cane and twirl our mustache.
Yeah.
You know, be slightly effeminate because we want strangers to broke back in it. But we don't want to rub it in their face now. The river is mean enough.
Now, there's no clear line drawn between prostitution and marriage, and
End of podcast.
Yeah. And there still isn't.
Good night, everybody. We figured it out.
There's no line drawn between prostitution and marriage.
That's it.
It is completely.
That's
It's as different as things
I know.
can be.
John,
no. It's just a longer term.
with the
I give you money and I'll stay here forever.
with a ratio of 20 men for every woman, if a lady wanted to keep making good money, she could marry several clients at once, visit them individually, or live all together in a big old commune.
Or take a fucking hot gangbang.
Oh my
the
god.
dome.
Well, yeah, but that's not gonna, you could,
You could and you
but you're
can.
gonna make more money if they marry you. And
Yeah,
I guess.
you come back, you're like, my wife's coming back here in about a fortnight.
so is my wife,
Yeah.
and my wife.
Me too.
I can't wait to see my wife in a fortnight.
Hot diggity dog.
Oh boy, she good.
Jasper, you whip up some of that hog tempura you so famous for.
Yeah, put
my
that-
wife loves it. Mine
that-
too.
Put that river relish on it with the cuticles.
Yeah, we gonna have a legal porno time tonight. We gonna have some Mississippi mud all over us, aren't we, boys?
Oh boy. Now,
That's cum.
Shit.
brothels in St. Louis and New Orleans were famous tourist destinations, held fundraisers with local politicians in attendance.
That's very cool.
By 1870, a police officer in St. Louis estimated there were 5,000 prostitutes, one for every 23 in the city.
That's pretty. I mean, that's better ratios than they have in public school classrooms.
A lot of people are not entrepreneurs.
That's right. According to St. Louis Magazine, one mayor quipped back then, "You can make prostitution illegal, but you can't make it unpopular."
Yeah.
I mean,
True.
this is the river law.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
River rules.
you do things in river life.
In 1870, the city of St. Louis effectively legalized it.
Legalize it.
Yes, I was right there with you too.
And they legalized it, and they opened up a hospital to treat the diseases running rampant from the practice, and they called the hospital the Social Evil Hospital.
What a soap opera. This week on Social Evil Hospital. My dick pointing. I got the boils and it's weeping a white milky substance. No.
Doctor.
My wife gave me something. So did mine. And mine too.
Did you pour river relish on it?
Yeah.
A whole big bunch.
What are you doing here? What are you doing here?
St. Louis itself was especially elegant and grand, and also full of the dirtiest maze of shanties and factories that spewed smoke and cinders everywhere. Residents called it the city built above hell. But let's go back half a century.
Good
Just
God.
A little.
St. Louis must be rolling in his grave.
Yeah.
Whoa! Back
2,000 aftershocks.
Now, let's go back 50 years. I just wanted, there's a little sidebar of St. Louis. Now, the small, isolated towns, they had very little law enforcement, so civilians took it upon themselves, forming groups of volunteers known as committees of safety and committees of vigilance. There are also quasi-professionals called regulators.
Oh, mount up! We regulating the stealing of this property. We're damn good, too. We can't be a geek off the street. You got to be handed with steal. I mean, you're going to keep.
Yeah.
And some were volunteers, other were mercenaries that just went town to town. Some people hiring them figured, well, at least the mercenaries, you know, they're not good people, but if we pay them, maybe they won't do stuff to us.
Yeah.
You know, they're law enforcement-esque.
Yeah.
Esque.
If you were a stranger in town, you could expect to be quizzed and asked to hand over your firearms.
If there are two rivers going in opposite directions on the bayou, and one is going 15 miles per hour, and the other one is going 17 miles per hour, which one is going to get to the crow's nest first? You have 30 seconds. Pop quiz, hot shot. You a new boy in town. You got to pass the quiz. Like that?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah,
Just like that.
I thought so. What's the difference between marriage and prostitution? Trick question.
There's no difference.
No, not on the river.
If you were in the plantations areas, there was a slave patrol to hunt for escapees and keep slaves on different plantations from talking. In the towns, though, slaves were often unsupervised for the day, and in many places they could mingle.
Oh, the hot slave mixer.
Yeah. No, it's in some places.
Oh, that's progressive. That's progressive slaver.
Go on and mingle.
I
but
let my
not-
slaves mingle.
No, in some places they could have parties at night.
Oh.
Yeah. And
You know there were some guys.
The-
that were
the
like,
phrase
"Man, that
I-
slave party's looking at having such a good time.
the phrase I think they're called, I can't say because I don't know for sure.
Say it. Black guy parties.
Or I want to say he was called a darky ball,
Oh my
Huh.
dear God.
Yeah.
but I'm not, I don't have the page.
Yeah. 88.
So all the bad terms come out. Page 88. Look it up.
Look it up.
He's checking.
They look like they're having a good time. Black turkey.
Oh my God.
The section from another part, later in the book that I added there. Now, of course, there was also a lot of vigilante justice. They called them lynch courts, which was named after a guy from the Revolutionary War named Judge Lynch.
Oh,
And in those days, the lynch courts didn't always mean a hanging. Sometimes it could mean a flogging or a beating or something similar.
Yeah.
The consistency of lynching would not be established until later years.
but that is where the term came from.
Yes.
Yes, from an Irish last name, much to our regret.
Yes, and there's a long story about
Stop.
there's a long story about a man named Ford who had Ford's Ferry and made a lot of money from it, and he
Jiffy Pop. Can you pick that up? Can you pick up the Jiffy Pop?
no.
We got the fireworks going off.
Oh
here,
no,
ladies and
no,
gentlemen.
no! The mics can't pick that up.
Oh, just for the
And
people at home.
Ford's Ferry became very famous or very rich because it was one of the few ferries that could bring people across the banks, and he had made a lot of money from it. And at some point, though, people started getting robbed around there by a gang, and eventually people started thinking maybe Ford had something to do with it. There was never any proof of this, but at some point, it may be someone he worked with or something. He left town, and when he came back, a vigilance committee arrested him, and he has to stay in an inn overnight while they brought him to the Judge Lynch trial, even though not Judge Lynch wasn't there, it was just whoever. And while someone asked him that night to could he read this letter? He's one of the few people who could read. He said, "I got this letter. Could you read it for me by this candlelight?" And as he stood by the candlelight, all of the vigilance committee went outside and shot him through the windows. And so he never made it to trial.
Holy shit.
Whether the gang stopped robbing, it doesn't say.
The letter says, You are a punk, bitch. Oh, one guy that can read has all the power.
Yeah.
It says I can have sex with your wife
Jesus.
for money.
It's my wife, too.
Wait a minute.
Wait.
There was a lot of dueling. I talked about the Bloody Island on the dueling episode. And there were, of course, wild men. The story of Alonzo Phelps, I will say for the Patreon. He was a learned wild man who read Horace and was eventually arrested for... he wouldn't kill travelers. He would only kill the vigilance committee who came after him.
Mm-hmm.
But he would rob the travelers.
Cool.
And eventually he was put on trial, and that I'll save that story.
I'm just a simple
Check out the Patreon,
wild
folks. $5 a month, an extra episode per week.
If you want to hear about the story about the wild man of Borneo, where is he? The wild man of
Not the wild man of Borneo.
Ford's Ferry?
Yeah.
Close enough.
Close enough.
I think it's
Check
probably
it out.
somewhere in Louisiana. Now, of course, the real stories probably weren't as interesting to the townsfolk as the tall tales that came with.
Yeah, here we go.
There's the story of Mike Fink. Now, Sandlin calls him a primordial example of literary realism. They took place in what was recognizably real Mississippi River Valley. Frontiersmen and Native Americans, bluffs and points. The only fantastic element was Fink himself. In the archetypal Fink story, he was floating down the Mississippi in a keelboat when he picked up his rifle for no reason at all and shot at somebody ashore. His target might be an Indian brave on a hilltop or a slave boy carrying a bucket along the plantation road. In an instant, the victim would have his earlobe sliced off by the bullet or a spur on his heel blasted away with surgical precision. Fink's boat glided on before the victim or bystanders could react. Fink was around the river bend, leaving nothing behind but the sound of his laughter.
I got your fucking earlobe, you black bastard.
I just ruined your life. Now I'm gone.
Yeah, exactly.
I just inconvenienced your day by fucking your spurs up,
Yeah.
sir.
Have fun limping.
He was basically like a Bill Brasky type.
What, he fucking had a pet snake named Beverly and he had to walk and shake people's hands?
But kind of. He
He had a toenail on the end of his dick.
He once sister kicked Angela Lansbury.
I mean, kind of. Yeah. He was the tallest, strongest, longest-winded fellow in the section, carried the truest rifle, knew more engine ways, was the wildest hand at a frolic, and withal was the greatest favorite in the country.
He was a 2-ton man mountain that could palm a medicine ball.
Exactly.
Dude, I used to memorize Bill Brasky.
It's so good. It's killer writing.
They say he was the last of the rivermen, the river folk. Men would say, and the story says the first time he saw a steamboat, he thought the smoke was the animals inside breathing.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Little demon goats.
Whether he really existed or he probably did not exist, though one person wrote that he knew the guy and he was an absolute awful human being and he hated his guts.
Mm-hmm. But he'd be goddamn if he didn't respect him.
Exactly. Let's see here. There was also tall tales of Davy Crockett around this time was reimagined as kind of the wild frontiersman. And
He was all Gen Z'd out. He had face tattoos.
Yeah, and that's
It's reimagining.
that mop hair.
Yeah.
and along with Davy Crockett, there was a female version called Annie Christmas.
Oh, that's interesting.
And,
what about a centaur version or a
well-
mermaid version? Or are you just going to stick to two genders like a fucking backward dork?
Well,
Like a landman.
A land them.
man. This is from Sandlin. They called her Annie Christmas, and her stories were all about prostitutes so skilled and so voracious they could intimidate Crockett himself.
Oh, my
I thought you were going to
God.
say crocodiles. Skill so voracious on any Christmas, you can make a crocodile come. Those ain't tears from the crocodile. It's the pre-cum.
Oh, my God. What?
Yeah, she was so skilled she could make a crocodile come.
Well, she was half Moy-Maid.
That's right, and that's the half that got the crocodile fucking going.
You know.
Don't
What?
even try with the gators.
One Annie Christmas story told of a prostitute traveling up and down the river with a bucket of gold. She'd bring it with her to the brothels and gunboats and offer to bet the bucket against the house that she could take on more men in one night than any woman there.
These are the best tall tales. Why didn't they ever teach this in high school?
It is said she never lost.
Oh, my God. She never lost, Aaron. She always
So she
paid.
got laid and paid?
Yes, exactly.
Uh-huh. It's not a sex wake. It's a sex pleasure. Bink.
from Sandland. There's one simple explanation for the wildness of the river culture. Everybody was drunk.
Yeah.
One writer said
On the river relish.
Yeah.
One writer said of his time in these towns, he said, and this is just the towns, he said, a whiskey keg in the morning, a keg of whiskey at night, stupid and gruff in the morning, by noon could talk politics and abuse the Yankees, and by sundown was brave for a fight. And that was on land. On the boats, everybody drank Monongahela rye, and they drank it all day.
Oh, God.
What's, I mean, I know what rye is, but what's this particular rye?
Monongahela was made in Monongahela Valley, and I believe it was Pennsylvania,
Oh, okay. I've
around
never heard
there.
of
And
that.
it
That's
was
fucking
like the
interesting,
main
man. Nice.
drink
That's
for
the
all
fucking
the
rye
people
whiskey.
on the boats.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucking cool, man.
Their main meal was pork or beef fried in dough and grease, and that's basically what they
What
ate.
do we say?
What did they
Yeah, we
eat?
know. We know
Yeah,
about the bacon tempura.
Yeah, we know.
But that's like they ate that every day, and every
it
day they
sounds-
wanked. They woke
They
up.
wanked.
They wanked and drank whiskey.
They wanked.
They woke, they wanked, they drank, they spanked,
Yeah.
they thanked.
Yes.
They thanked.
They fought almost every hour on the boats, and in the river districts, a drunken riot was commonplace. Also, a reason why the towns didn't really want them there.
Yeah.
Because by the time they showed up, they're already drunk, and then they got more drunk, and they fought.
And then they had the shit. Can you imagine the shit from whiskey and pork tempura?
yeah.
Do you think it would be tempting for you as a common land mammal?
Land
if,
man.
if you knew that there was this crazy lifestyle on the river, that you'd be like, I want to get down there. I want to get down there and just cause a ruckus. Or do you think you'd be like, I don't know about these?
I mean, I think, there are, but like, I don't want to say equivalents to that in every time and place, but there's always an option.
To kick things up a notch.
Yeah, or to be a traveling type, whether
Sure.
it's being in a band and touring or being a fucking burner and just going festival to festival and picking up odd jobs.
Sure,
like,
Yeah.
Or joining the circus.
Yeah.
Like, there's always an alternative lifestyle that is more what
it's-
we call itinerant.
Yeah. And it's dangerous, but it's also free.
Yeah.
Sure.
That was the thing I remember reading a column from a guy one time where he was saying, like, in a place where you have great freedom, you also do have a greater threshold for danger.
Yeah, or even
Sure,
just like uncertainty. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what part of what freedom is the uncertainty. That's why you're joining in.
Yeah.
Is fuck man.
Lack of security.
Yeah. And also, I mean, you how far the Mississippi ran, it went through so many different places, not just so many different types of wilderness, but so many different types of people and towns. And we'll get to the famous ones a little
The
bit.
original railroad, dude.
Oh, yeah, without question. The railroad would actually,
Wishes it was the fucking Mississippi.
the railroad would change the Mississippi. But as for the drunken riots, here's some Sandlin. In one celebrated incident in the 1810s, a keelboat captain broke up a fight on deck by beating an oar repeatedly over the head of the most drunken and abusive crewman, until the man fell to the deck unconscious and then slithered overboard and drowned.
Slithered.
The case became famous only because the captain was conscientious enough to turn himself in to the authorities of the next port. There was a hasty inquest was held, and the verdict was accidental death.
Oh yeah, it's river law, man.
Yeah.
River law.
Now it wasn't just the
It's very similar to swamp law.
yes
Just for the
yes.
The litigator.
I mean,
I didn't pass the ball here in Riverland, but
Yeah.
it does transfer over.
He was drunk as a skunk, and I had to beat him with the oar.
the swamps, they did, touch and leak into the Mississippi.
The jurisdiction is overlapping when it comes to litigating on the swamp and the river, so therefore I am allowed to practice.
Now, it wasn't just some scandalous stuff on the river, but off the river, there were infamous camp meetings or the tent meetings. Religious gatherings in the high summer when farmers could take a week off. Large tents would be set up with hostels, taverns, hospitals, and kitchens. In 1840, Cane Ridge, Kentucky, there was one held with 20,000 people
In a tent?
in a
I mean, a
encampment.
large- Yeah.
There were simple sermons that grew increasingly wild as the week went on. The people in the crowd building with excitement as the crowd grew. I don't know why I'm reading it like I'm reading a book. No, this is my writing. As the crowd grew, there was
No, that's okay.
would be multiple sermons. The crowd would get so large that you couldn't hear the main sermon, so there'd be other sermons happening all around you.
It's like Coachella, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually, people would start screaming. Men would fall to the ground, rolling around. People would start barking and howling and start running around.
Slithering.
Some would start fighting each other, and a lot of people started fucking.
Oh my God.
The spirit just moved him.
Yeah, no, people weren't that all careful to make a distinction between religious ecstasy and sexual hunger.
And historically there has not been
Yeah.
that's a very human thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Filled with God's love. I want to fill you with my love.
Yeah, religious ecstasy. The ecstasy nonetheless.
Yeah.
According to one scandalized report from a vigilance committee, a woman at one camp meeting invited 6 men to meet with her in the woods at the same time.
Oh my God, 6?
Yeah. It was a standard joke that the local population invariably spiked 9 months after any meeting. The children were known throughout the River Valley as camp meeting babies.
Aww.
And there are also a lot of...
That means they let you come in them.
Yeah. We met at camp.
This one time at river camp, I let 6 guys fuck me in my pussy.
Oh my God.
There were also prostitutes would show up and sell their wares around the edges of the camp because they knew this was good money to be made here.
Dream catchers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Azure.
Load catchers.
In later years, all of this would be tamped down, and the religious authorities that dominated American churches later in the century regarded the boredom of the new camp meetings as one of their greatest moral triumphs.
Good for them.
Look at nobody here's dancing or fucking or anything. This is awesome.
Now, it also didn't help that people around these areas lived with, Sandlin writes, a penumbra of supernatural dread. Owls were bad omens. Dogs barking at night meant death. People carried a tuft of wool tied with thread at all times to prevent being ridden by witches. And so the people were ripe for distractions as well.
Yeah.
P.T. Barnum made a hugely successful run down the river in 1840, and then out came river boats and opera boats, and as they arrived into towns, they would have trumpeters go out.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being one of these fucking simple river folk? You think witches are around and werewolves and mermaids and centaurs, and this guy comes around with a bearded lady and an elephant on a fucking boat?
Yeah.
You
And
never
the bearded lady-
seen, you never seen such oddities.
And the bearded lady definitely was a child of a mermaid and a centaur.
Obviously.
Yeah, it's clear. It's math.
Dude, she's got an Augmesian in her fucking overcoat.
Do the division. See a bearded lady.
Get a calculator, do the math.
Yeah.
Too short.
Roger's Floating Circus Palace was a showboat more than 200 feet long and required its own full-size steamboat as a tug.
Ah, nice.
It had chimes, siren, and a huge pipe organ. As it pulled to the levee, a brass band played on deck to entertain for free while those who came to watch its arrival. The boat seated more than 3,000 people. There was an equestrian act featuring 40 horses. There was a museum of curiosities with thousands of odd trinkets and treasures, from rows of exotic seashells to stuffed tigers. The strangest attraction in the museum was an oracle, a brass sphere with 4 protruding trumpets that hung in the middle of a dark stage. Its sinister and otherworldly voice would emit riddles about the future. Some of these were topical jokes, some were references to local affairs, which always startled the spectators. The shows would have people going to town.
Topical local jokes. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't want to be caught dead at the crow's nest, am I right? This guy knows what I'm talking about. Says the ball of brass. What else? What else? Smoking a cig. I love local comedy.
The most popular form in the 1850s was the minstrel show.
Oh,
Dozens of minstrel troops would go on tour in those years, like the Christie minstrels and the Congo melodists and the original Ethiopian serenaders. Most of them are white guys in blackface, but there are also some all-Negro minstrel shows, and a few with female performers. These were highly controversial, in fact. The minstrel phenomenon, the minstrel phenomenon in general was so upsetting to audiences in the slave states that in the years just before the Civil War, minstrel shows were banned throughout the Deep South and Lower Valley.
why?
It was,
Aaron.
No. Like, why were they controversial to those people in particular?
I think it was something of,
Glorifying blackness,
no,
even in a derogatory way.
I think it disproved the belief that black people were inferior to whites.
Yes. Yes. That makes sense. Because you go like, if we're so entertained by this, then it means that we should feel guilty about enslaving and abusing these people.
Even in the most derogatory and humiliating way, it is still humanizing them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Very interesting. I have no opinion.
Yes, you do. I don't know what the fuck you're doing besides fucking with me.
About it.
Now, I know you've been waiting for this. I would like to get to the steamboats.
Yeah, Cleveland Steamers, baby.
Woo!
But first, let's take a little break.
All right, we'll be right back, folks. And we're back.
Hey.
River life.
No.
I'm a river rat. You can see from my decal on my Toyota Tacoma. I got it's a rat with sunglasses on a jet ski.
Yeah. Squatch life. I bet the Sasquatch was going haywire on that river.
Oh, yeah. Loved it.
Stomping around, taking big shits.
Yeah, fucking water skiing behind one of these barges.
Woo!
So, the steamboats, huh? Now, the first steamboat was in 1811. It's called New Orleans, made by Robert Fulton, who had learned the design in England, and funded by a man named Robert Livingston, who helped negotiate the Louisiana Purchase. Here is a picture of it.
It's a drawing.
Drawings are pictures. It's not a photograph.
That's true. It's not even a daguerreotype.
No. It's, a simple little thing.
Yeah.
They got one of those at Disneyland.
That's true. It rode from Pittsburgh to New Orleans. It took about 2.5 months.
Fuck me. What?
But that was huge at that time. It would take a lot longer without that. Fulton would later write to a friend that he had conquered the river. During the trip, they almost caught fire when wood was left too close to a stove. And then they were around Natchez during the 7.5 earthquake and were swamped and almost sank. The steamboat itself forever altered the river traffic. Now, the upstream boats would stay to the shallows, and the downstream boats would ride the channels. But the steamboat didn't need the shore, nor did it want to be that close. It needed water deep enough for it, and it had no care if it swamped or smashed into other boats. Sometimes the smaller boats, upon seeing a steamboat coming towards them, would start shooting at the boathouse.
Fuck.
The pilot house. Now, their takeover was inevitable. There had 12 of them by 1817, 60 by 1819. In 1826, there were 143. That's about 60% of all the steamboats ever built at that time. Or maybe, yeah.
And they were filled with steampunks.
By the 1860s, there were 4,000 of them.
Jesus. And all on the Mississippi?
Yes.
4,000
Yes.
boats just going up and down this fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that.
Good, John.
Yeah.
Wow.
Everybody on his name Willie.
Yeah.
And
That whistle. That woo-woo.
It's that woo.
their average life was 3 years, and the New Orleans helped define that, hitting a snag and sinking in 1814. Over the years, as the amount of steamboats grew, of course, there were more and more boiler explosions.
Nice.
The boilers were generally well made, but rarely well run. The ships didn't use pure water like the boilers were built for. Instead, they pumped it right out of the river using murky, muddy, silty water, causing clogs and slush, which caused uneven heating in the boilers, which of course led to them exploding.
Cool.
As the markets grew, the owners of the boats demanded they be run faster, further, and harder.
There's too much relish in the boiler. Back off the relish.
There's too much red shite cuticle.
In a 30-year span, they lost an estimated 500 boats.
Damn. Is that still 1 out of 5?
No, that's 15%.
Yeah, probably. It's
Quick math.
Yeah, no, it's probably better than,
It's not much better.
And basically, when the boiler would explode, most of the people on the boat would die or be thrown into the river and die, and it was
Leave mangled.
a bomb, basically. There's the most famous of which of these explosions was incredibly catastrophic, but it happens in the Civil War, and I will save that one for the Patreon.
You got to pay to hear that one, dude.
Yeah.
It's
Gotta
too
get
good.
in.
It's too good.
$5 a month, extra episode per week.
Come on.
Get involved.
So many boats were lost that a man named James Eads started a salvage business and quickly became filthy rich. He made a diving bell out of a 40-gallon wine barrel, and he even designed a boat to raise sunken ships. And through his constant scouring of the river bottom, he became such an expert in treacherous navigation of the river that the rivermen started calling him Captain.
Hey.
And he was called Captain Eads the rest of his life.
Dude.
During the Civil War, he designed ironclads for the U.S. Navy, and after the war, he built the first road and rail bridge to cross the river.
Wow.
It's finished in 1874. The Eads Bridge in St. Louis was the longest arch bridge in the world when it was completed, and it's still in use today.
Hey.
How about that?
Eat that, Baltimore.
Eat it up!
Now, for the boat owners, it was easy business and good money. There was 3 main routes. One, just one-off cargo deliveries, or a long route stopping at cities along the way, or just shuttling back and forth between 2 cities. A ride from New Orleans to the upper river valley was about $100 for a bed in the cabin, 3 meals a day, $150 for a private room. It's about $3,500 today. Crewmen earned as much as $50 a month. An apprentice would get $20 if they were lucky. You could sleep on the deck for $5, and it was just find a spot. That's it. You find a spot. Sometimes it was among the cattle or the barrels or
You broke back it. It's no big deal.
It's fine.
2 guys paying
River
$5.
law.
It's
We'll split it.
Now the boats were.
We'll split one spot.
You could also, in order to pay your fare, you could also help unload cargo.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they call it.
My friend's
Hey,
name.
come help me unload my cargo. I'll let you sleep in my bed.
Dennis Miller voice.
I'm baby obsqueaches here.
Yeah. My nuts got some luggage.
They come with some baggage. I shared a wife with 25 guys. Needless to say, there's some mileage.
Stamp the passport.
Dunk.
The boats were designed for 250 people, but regularly sold at least 400 tickets. Herman Melville, he described one in The Confidence Man, his masquerade, in his novel. He said, as among Chaucer's Canterbury pilgrims, or those Oriental ones crossing the Red Sea towards Mecca in the festival month, there was no lack of variety. Natives of all sorts and foreigners, men of business and men of pleasure, parlor men and backwoodsmen, farm hunters and fame hunters, heiress hunters, gold hunters, buffalo hunters, bee hunters, happiness hunters,
Bee hunters?
truth hunters, and still keener hunters after all those hunters. Fine ladies in slippers, moccasin squaws, northern speculators, eastern philosophers, English, Irish, German, Scotch, Danes, Santa Fe traders in striped blankets, Broadway bucks in cravats of cloth of gold, fine-looking Kentucky boatsmen and Japanese-looking Mississippi cotton planters, Quakers in full drab, United States soldiers in full regimentals, slaves, black, mulatto, quadroon, modish, young Spanish Creoles and old-fashioned French Jews, Mormons and Papists,
Old-fashioned French shit.
dives and Lazarus, jesters and mourners, teetotalers and convivialists,
Sacre blues and program.
deacons and black.
Sacre blue.
Deacons and blacklegs, hard-shell Baptists and clay eaters, grinning Negroes and Sioux chiefs, solemn as high priests. In short, a piebald
Sous chefs is interesting.
Well, they're training.
My God, I've got a party of 6 at a 4-top. My servers are tired.
Yeah.
In short, a piebald parliament. Anachronous, klutz, congress of all kinds, the multiform pilgrim species man. Anachronous klutz was a freshwater weed.
What's it? Was Anacharis Klutz?
Yeah, it's a freshwater weed.
Legalize it.
Yeah.
Don't demonize it.
Yeah. That's that good river weed.
Dude, riverweed?
It's hydroponic.
Got that good relish.
Now, the hunters of hunters that he mentioned, they were con men of all sorts, land dealers, fundraisers, medicine men, etc. Anybody who get you to talk and give them money for their cause or whatever. There's also a ton of drinking, and the boats themselves were incredibly loud, so the people only got louder. Perhaps this fostered an air of depravity among the passengers. Noise, confusion, spitting, smoking, cursing, swearing, and constant whittling of any piece of wood available. Be it railing or table leg. A guy with a knife and a wooden table leg. At mealtime, the people would swarm the cabin, eating silently and as quickly as they could. Back to the zip line, of course. And with loathsome spitting. The frightful manner of feeding with their knives till the whole blade seemed to enter the mouth. They would just sit down and eat like animals. That was...
Yeah.
And they gambled constantly on these things.
Yes.
Rondo, Keno, Faro, Roulette, Monte, Euchre, Rouge et Noir, 7-Up, and the old sledge. And what the weather would be tomorrow, the depth of the river at the next sounding. But mostly it was poker.
Prop bets. Nice.
Poco, River
This
Poco.
episode is brought to you by DraftKings.
No, it's not.
For gambling help, call...
In Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
call this number.
And if you're along the Mississippi River Delta, call this number.
Delaware,
Not allowed to
call this number.
If you're a sous chef,
Yeah.
well,
And what was the fucking thing of full drab of what was it, Mormons? Or
Mormons, Quakers, and full drab.
Quakers.
Yeah.
That means like the guy on the box.
he's like fucking 2,000.
Yeah, Barbara Bush, yeah.
Yeah.
Now here's a picture of the inside of one of the boats.
That's beautiful.
That's nice. That's very nice.
We don't have anything like that now.
No,
I mean, you go on a cruise ship, but like, you can
When they had those ladies in those lampshade dresses, didn't you just imagine that her ass was so bodacious
bulbous.
that it made the rest of the dress just kind of like go really, really far? You know what I mean? Like
She had a big old bulbous ass.
You would imagine like if it's creating that much of a fucking curtain underneath, that the ass must
It's
be
room for 25 husbands.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and they're all working overtime,
Yeah.
and they like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually powered the boat. The 25 guys under the dress,
Just going ham.
just going ham.
Ham tempura.
Cunnilingus.
Now, they mostly played poker. The version they're using having been invented in New Orleans around 1820.
What version is that?
First, it started with 20 cards or so.
20 card poker?
Yeah.
Jesus
And
Christ.
you would,
Wait,
you know-
you can have there's two people playing.
Well, no, you get dealt 4 cards, and you would bet on who had the best hand.
Oh, just like that.
And then eventually 52 cards around the time of the gold rush. And on these boats is probably where the last card dealt in the hand became known as the river.
Ah, that makes sense.
Ah.
Now, among the gamblers and conmen, there was a shorthand code to recognize each other. A simple question. Do you live on the river? If they said yes, you knew that they were a gambler or a conman. And so you didn't try to con with them. You might gamble with them, but you don't con them.
I like that a lot. I like code languages.
They were also known as black thumbs.
Ink for
Maybe ink from the cards.
yeah. Or sticking their thumb up each other's bung holes while they're broke backing it around the crow's nest.
That's,
you know what I'm saying?
that's probably what it
Yeah,
was.
that's
I'm
probably
more of a brown thumb myself.
I like playing with that guy. Cards always stink.
I can always tell which cards he had.
It's a dead giveaway, man. He's got
all
he's
number
got
twos.
he's got to tell. His tell is I got stink of shit on the 2 of spades.
Oh God! Two
On,
of farts.
on these boats, as one author wrote, the very order of civilized society was reversed, and a disorganization of principle of men and manners prevailed, to which I have never seen a parallel in the whole of my former experience. Now, there was also the issue of money. Specie, which was gold and silver coins from the U.S. Mint, were the only trusted form of money, but it was so rare that people usually hoarded it until they could barter it for coffee or salt, which was worth more than gold at that time. There was also paper money issued by banks. They were called greenbacks or redbacks or bluebacks or blue pup or red horse or red tag or stump tail. Anyone suspected of passing counterfeits was arrested, brought to a lynching court, and flogged. If you were found with blank paper to make counterfeit money, you were branded. If you were caught with plates etched with currency patterns, you were put to death.
Fuck yeah, dude. Recent experience makes me really wanna.
No.
There was a weekly magazine called the Western Banknote Reporter and Counterfeit Detector, and it was distributed on steamboats. Now, there were some nice places the steamboats stopped, St. Louis being one of the gems, but the towns of Alexandria, Keokuk, Davenport, and Dubuque were nice enough, too. They had brick storefronts and glass windows. Most places, glass windows were a sign of of medium wealth, at least.
Yeah, better than wood windows.
Well, so what they would do, most places were piles of shoddy shanties, windows of parchment paper smeared with grease so they could see through them. That old Simpsons joke is real. And sewage and animal corpses dumped in the street. The town would be served by boats, largely a general store stinking from open barrels. And they had a general store. They would sell stuff to boats, stinking of open barrels of vinegar and kerosene. And they would have a saloon with a brothel in the back. Novelist Francis Trollope described these places as wretched looking in the extreme.
Yeah. Place smell like shit.
There was no city planning. The shacks were built poorly and at weird angles. Their chimneys of any sort would spew ash embers everywhere. There were so many fires in these towns that people started to believe that there were secret gangs of fire starters going from town to town.
I mean, when you've got vinegar and kerosene and open embers and dead animals and antelopes and shit, it sounds horrible.
It sounds cool.
I mean, there's something enticing.
Yeah. Makes you want to get involved.
Yeah.
Bunch of stinking old donkeys.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, you want to get involved.
Yeah.
Now, St. Louis had a firefighting crew by 1840, but there was little they could do when in 1849 a steamboat called the White Cloud started burning by the giant dock in St. Louis near the giant levee. The steamboat was made of white ash and it burned really quickly, down to the waterline, and then its moorings burned, and the boat slipped away from the dock and down the levee. Then it ran into more boats. These boats caught fire, burned, broke away, and they started passing fire to more boats. When it was over, 23 steamboats had burned. Then the fire jumped to the warehouses on the levee, and they burned there overnight.
Jesus Christ.
By dawn, hundreds of buildings were on fire, including 3 of the city's largest banks and the central post office.
Don't worry, we're safe here. We're on water.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Fire and water don't mix, guys. We're going to be fine.
Amazingly, they do cohabitate quite well.
Yeah.
That's true.
Firefighters made a desperate move and filled 6 businesses in the fire line with kegs of black powder and blew them up.
Smart.
Fire captain.
Adding black powder to a fire?
Well,
They to stop the fire, like to.
This was a new idea.
Extinguish the fuel
Yeah.
for the next one.
So they burned out an area so the fire couldn't
Burn that stuff and spread.
and this was a new idea at the time.
You know what we got to do with this fire is
have to burn it
add
out.
explosives.
Burn
Yes,
it
no,
out.
people were shocked when it worked.
Yeah.
Fire captain.
John's still shocked.
I am.
Fire Captain Thomas Targhee died when the keg he threw in the building exploded in front of him.
He was shocked, to say the least.
He never knew that he would die when he threw a keg of gunpowder into a fire. He had no idea. Nobody could foresee this.
Yeah, they said he was blown to atoms.
Atoms!
Yeah.
And Eves. But not Steve. Gay shit.
Centaurs, yes.
Yes.
He was the first professional firefighter in America to die in the line of duty. They named a street after him.
Yeah.
But
First one, what was it called? Adams?
yes.
That's why there's an West Adams in every city, like Euclid.
Yeah. One day we're going to have a big old 9/11
event. One day there's going to be a 9/11. Yeah?
Yeah. They tried adding explosives to that, too.
They did.
It didn't work. It did.
When they built the
in
building.
Building 7.
Yeah.
Now you're catching up. You're catching up.
Like
I think it worked, actually.
the only way to stop this.
The only way to stop this is by demolishing the building with all the records and the insurance and all that. What you want to do is throw a keg at it.
Yeah.
Now, the firebombing did work. The fire died out. Final stats, 11 hours, 433 buildings and 23 steamboats lost, over a dozen small boats and 3 people. Here's a picture of St. Louis after the fire.
There's Israelis dancing on the rooftops.
This
This is your fucking daily dose of 9/11 conspiracy theory, man. We got some loose change wrangling around. Watch it on YouTube.
You know what the thing about this is? I don't see.
Yeah, they are.
I don't see a single steel beam in the whole fucking thing.
We know that gunpowder kegs don't burn hot enough to melt steel, man.
Do you think that happened? Then they're like, gunpowder kegs don't melt oak logs.
White ash? You know, everyone know that. Must be one of them fire starter gangs.
Yeah. River conspiracy theories?
Yeah, dude. Big River.
Big River.
The River Industrial Complex.
Yeah.
I saw the Sasquatch running down the street with sparklers.
Now,
It doesn't look good.
no, it's quite bad.
It's quite, it looks like a hard time.
Yeah, it looks like one of those pictures from Chernobyl.
It's like, that's why people are going like, dude, that's why I stay on the river, because, just
Too much shit to burn out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all float down here.
We do. We all float down here.
Now, you guys will find it hard to believe.
4 out of 5 of us float down here.
You guys will find it hard to believe, but all of these places are also ripe for disease.
What?
I don't believe that.
Ripe.
In the 1810s and 1820s, a mysterious fever killed thousands of people. It was called the shakes or the slows, and also puke fever.
Puke. Catch it.
Mainly, it was known as milk sick, as it was believed to be caused by tainted cow's milk. They believed it was either a bite from a milk sick fly, which doesn't exist, or the cows were being poisoned by licking dew. They believed dew was poison.
Yeah. The Baja
Mountain
Blast.
Dew, yeah.
In fact, though, they were
They were
actually-
just milking bulls.
yeah, exactly.
I got the milk sick.
That's fucking cow cum.
You know that one?
Yeah, no, I know it. Yeah, I get what you're doing.
Chugging that bull milk.
I like this cow's milk better.
It's thicker and more so. It's got the relish to it, you know?
Now, they actually were they weren't that far off. The cows were getting sick. They were eating white snake root.
No, what happens when cows eat white snake root? They rock and they fucking jam out.
They swallow.
They rock you like a hurricane.
When they drink milk snake root.
White snake root, dude.
White snake root.
Oh,
They
well, that's a
fucking party,
good band.
bro.
That's a good band.
Yeah, white snake
Yeah.
root.
Yeah.
White snake root has a toxin in it that causes people to
Party.
shake and fever and get fevers, and it's poisonous to not cows, I guess, but some animals
Okay.
and definitely people.
Oh, so the white snake root poison toxin gets absorbed by the cow, passes through the milk into the people drinking the cow's milk.
Yes.
Or
Into-
cum.
Into the
Yes.
cum.
That's fucking interesting. What is White Snake?
It's a band, and they're
I know
great
that.
from the 80s.
Yeah. And they mashed up with the Roots,
Yes. And they play on Jimmy Fallon.
dude, and it's tight.
It's a poisonous perennial herb.
Poison is another good band. And when you're on these boats, you're with a bit of a motley crew.
Here's a picture of the snake root.
Oh,
Looks tasty.
those don't look like roots.
Oh,
at
that's
all.
delicious.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that would fuck you up.
No, that'd be a nice addition to a bouquet, like a baby's breath or something like that.
Now, it was one of the white snake root was one of the leading causes of death and disability in the Midwest and Upper South for over 2 centuries,
Jesus Christ.
and the cause was not officially identified until 1928.
So people were just eating white snake root, thinking like, "Oh, here's a thing I looks like I can."
Usually
They were
animals.
saying, "Here I go again."
On my own. Like a drifter, I was born.
White snake.
It killed Abe Lincoln's mother. Okay, I hope you're laughing now.
Now, wasn't she crazy?
Well, it probably made her crazy.
Oh, and it also made him a great man.
I didn't say that.
Yes, I did.
And noted homosexual.
And
Noted.
cool dude.
Yeah.
Gay guy.
Yeah. Star of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't just puke fever, aka milk sick. There were also waves of smallpox, diphtheria, measles, bumps, influenza, malaria, typhus, and many others that no one could identify that maybe never showed up again.
Mainly just diarrhea.
Yeah. They call them names like dew poisoning, ground itch, woods, fever, dog fever, locked bowels, the summer complaint, and congestion of the brain.
Lock bowels and summer complaint.
The summer complaint is so funny.
Dude.
It's like, I can't stop shitting.
Today,
Well, it's after fucking June 21st, so yeah.
I would say today these are all good band names.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Lock bowels and summer complaint.
Summer complaint is tight.
Hey, ready for summer complaint? This is our first song called Lock Bowels.
Yeah. Fucking cruel summer.
Yeah.
Congestion of the brain.
Also
That-
awesome.
Yeah. That's like a East Coast hardcore.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the biggest, the most well-known one was yellow fever.
Catch that. John catching it.
Yellow fever. Here's what happens with yellow fever at its peak. Not only it's unmistakable black vomit from eyes and the lungs, but
Oh,
profuse hemorrhages from the mouth, nose, ears, eyes, and even the toes. The eyes prominent, glistening, yellow, and staring. The face discolored with orange color and dusky red. There was the sight of a yellow jack corpse, which they grew to know intimately. The expression on the face was sad, sullen, and perturbed. The skin was dark, mottled, livid, swollen, and stained with blood and black vomit. And even after death, the veins on the face and whole body became distended and looked as if they were going to burst.
John, they knew the corpse intimately.
Do you think that the Asian carp started the yellow fever? And then they got on board the tugboats, and then it was all over.
Yeah, they monopolized it.
It was over.
We're just a merman.
You been here before?
Please hurry up.
Towns would start flying flags. Red meant a quarantine. Yellow meant yellow jack. Everybody was constantly in the boat cities. All the strangers were constantly being looked at for signs of yellow skin or nosebleed or.
Signs of yellow skin.
He's going in to get a whiskey. His nose just dripped, and he's like, "Come on."
So what? My toes are vomiting. I'm just a simple river folk.
Yeah.
My toes vomit from time to time.
Come on.
My toes vomit black.
Who cares?
Come on, dude. It's athlete's foot.
1832 brought the first cholera outbreak, and it
Took long enough.
started in Europe. It was brought to Montreal, and it started winding its way through the country, hitting the Great Lakes region, and then some of those infected people on steamboats. And at that time, those steamboats were requisitioned by the federal government to carry 1,300 troops down to fight natives in the Black Hawk War. By the time those troops got to the eastern edge of Lake Michigan, there was an epidemic on all of these boats.
And those troops gave all those Black Hawks cholera.
No, they didn't. They didn't make it that far.
Oh,
The commanders ordered the boats to not let anyone out, but every time the boats got off to refuel, people just jumped overboard and began infecting towns. Everybody who died in the boats was just thrown overboard and would wash up on beaches downstream. By the time the convoy reached its destination on the western edge of Lake Michigan, 1,300 troops had turned to 200.
fuck.
The epidemic didn't stop, though. In the river valley, whole villages died and no one had any idea for weeks or months. It killed 500 in St. Louis and 700 in Cincinnati. Then it came again in 1849, killed 4,500 in St. Louis and 6,000 in Cincinnati, usually about 5 to 10% of the population. In New Orleans, a broken staff just abandoned a hospital full of these people. People would bring loved ones to cemeteries and just dump them on the ground. The city in New Orleans, thinking that the cause was poisonous vapors, set ablaze barrels of tar and pitch on street corners and shot cannons off at intervals to disperse river fog.
Yeah.
The barrels caused major fires in the city.
I don't know, man. Fire a gun at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you drink any water that has it,
Yeah.
or you spend time with someone who has it, and
If you broke back it.
if you broke back,
If
him,
you
yeah.
bareback it, for
If you
sure.
bareback it, yeah. Yeah. If you get sweaty during barebacking
Yeah, if you're a cabin boy and and you're trying to milk his sweat out and
Yeah.
he's got it and you're drinking a big old gallon of his sweat,
and he's whipping up a fresh batch of river
and
relish.
Oh, dude, you're done, man.
Yeah, and unsanitary conditions, drinking water that's already been tainted by
Taint.
someone. Yeah.
Got to take the good with the bad.
And
You take the good, you take the bad, you put them together, and there you have the facts of life.
and as for New Orleans, it didn't help that the city smelled like shit already.
Yeah.
The streets were open trenches with dead animals backing up putrid water and piles of garbage. Eventually, the city collected trash and threw it in the river, but it always seemed to come right back to the levee. And eventually they made what they called a nuisance barge, and they brought all their trash 100 yards down the river and threw it in there.
Dude, when I went to New Orleans, one of the taxi driver guys was like, "Oh yeah, the NOPD, the Not Our Problem Department."
Wow. Yikes.
Pretty good, right?
It is pretty good.
Now, the street. So eventually, the city itself of New Orleans was packed tight, full of wealth and immigrants arriving daily: Creoles, Cajuns, Germans, Spaniards, Italians, Mexicans, Danes, Portuguese, Belgians, free people of color from the West Indies and South America.
What about Irish?
Not Belgian.
Yeah.
The Belgians, the mussels from Brussels.
Oh.
Now, the Great Market was a mile long, an incessant, loud, rapid, and various gabble of tongues of all tones ever heard at Babel. It was just all of these different places.
It's the most melting pot part of the country that ever has been or ever will be.
Yeah. The market had fresh fish in endless profusion, and cuts of wretched red meat arrived in port already butchered and getting rank in the hot climate. Wild ducks and other game fowl, shellfish, poultry, eggs, Irish potatoes and sweet potatoes. Root vegetables of all sorts, pyramids of oranges, heaps of bananas and ears of corn, oozing stacks of sugar cane and all manner of dried tinned goods, trinkets and other things to be sold in that manner and place than I can enumerate. Also, they had books, too.
Oh.
Nobody was interested in that.
No, at least the people writing books were like,
I want the Irish potatoes.
The only interesting books were the books that listing all the cool shit you go buy.
Now, they also had a warehouse district, of course, and that was much larger. The steamboats stacked 4 deep, waiting to unload silk from China, lead from Iowa, handcrafted furniture from France, perfumes from the Middle East,
Hell yeah, dude.
goods for transport up the river, coffee, salt, nails, vinegar, whale oil, lots of food, and livestock.
And hookers, too.
Sure, yeah.
New Orleans is awesome. Have you been?
No.
Have you been?
Just through. I actually stayed with a dude that was.
Broke back in it.
No, he was a counselor to the counselors.
Counselor
Of.
to the counselor.
He was a counselor to the counselors of people that were like, like
Fucked up.
counseling people about Katrina.
Oh.
So it was like this pyramid of grief went up.
Oh, yeah, he's one of those guys.
went up
like
to
my
this-
therapist.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, New Orleans is awesome. Ultimate melting pot.
I've never been. I know.
You'd love it.
I know.
Matt,
Yeah.
you love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Therefore, you should love it.
Yeah.
God.
Anything you like, I like.
Really?
And I don't ask questions,
I like that.
including broke back in it.
Shh.
Now, they needed a lot of food coming in because Sandlin writes that despite the valley having the most fertile soil in the world, but they had used all that to plant so much cotton and sugar that they were no longer self-sufficient in food.
Now, does the river make things more fertile?
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly,
Oh,
certainly,
yeah.
without
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the silt in the river, and yeah, I mean,
All those cuticles,
yeah,
Yeah, all the red shirts,
Mhm.
all the poo poo and pee pee
the poo poo and the pee pee.
and the cum.
Yeah.
yeah. It's no coincidence that the Nile or
Yeah, the Nile. The periodic flooding of the Nile was what was responsible for the bountiful harvests.
and the calendar.
That's true. Yeah, the Nile was itself a god.
Mm-hmm.
And it was responsible for very, very much. Nile also one of the very few rivers that flows south to north.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of times the Mississippi has,
Reverse flow.
yes, I believe during one of the earthquakes.
Dude, what?
Yes,
Get out of
Aftershocks.
2001.
I'm back in the crow's nest. I must be out of my mind.
This is some sort of leftover situation with the time and the shocks, earthquake, and
Now, of course, in New Orleans, slaves were sold, most not at auction, but at slave yards near the St. Charles Hotel.
silent auction for charity.
A
You
passer.
buy this fine slave and you get a $100 gift card to Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, usually the big slave sales weren't in the town
Wasn't the
center.
4th of July
It was
or
like
Labor Day.
outside, at a fork in the road or something. And some of these places would become famous for just that. And but in the St. Charles Hotel, a passerby walking might remark that it didn't seem so repulsive. All the slaves were dressed nicely and standing at attention, but they were all dolled up for the
Yeah,
It's like a used car dealership. The
Yeah.
thing's got a fresh fucking coat of wax,
Yeah.
and they reupholstered, and they detailed the interior, but it's still.
Yeah, no, they were property.
I'm not saying that the people were.
That's how they were treated.
Slaves.
They were treated as property.
Yeah.
On average, slaves were sold for $700 to $1,200, about $23,000 to $40,000 today.
Do not even go there.
John, would you get one?
No, I would not.
But you could do whatever you want.
I know. I understand where you're going. Yeah.
$23,000, and you could have a person to do whatever you needed forever.
I understand what you're saying.
Would you do it?
No. I'm a self-made man.
Whatever.
What?
Whatever, dude.
You
Bad
would.
business.
You would.
Bad business.
You would.
Bad business.
You would.
Blacksmiths and coopers, as we know now, guys who make barrels.
Barrels, yeah.
They were sold for $1,500 because
You can buy a cooper
Yeah.
and a blacksmith?
Mm-hmm.
Are they slaves?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. $1,500 each.
Man, that's skilled-ass labor.
But a literate slave would only go for $500 because they were
literate, not
Yeah.
illiterate.
illiterate.
A slave who could read was cheaper.
Yeah, because
they might leave.
they were dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what?
Wow.
I like that.
There were also sex slaves sold for $3,500 to $5,000, about $118,000 to $168,000.
No, I already know John's answer to that one.
Shut
so I'm
the
not even gonna
fuck
ask him.
up.
Can they read?
Well,
They have to read you to sleep and shit.
they did. They were sold at what was called a quadroon ball. Quadroon was a level of blackness of the slaves.
Right. I think we talked about it in one of your episodes.
Maybe the
about
maroon
the maroon episode.
Yeah.
It was there was the, the chart of how.
Yes. How pure black they were. And the girls would dress up in gowns and dance and demonstrate their beauty, charm, and social skills.
Fuck.
Of course, there were also the voodoo shops.
Yeah.
The first celebrated one was on the outskirts of town, run by a black African calling himself Dr. John. And he wore formal suits with frilled shirts, and his face was tattooed.
No, Dr. John is a very famous character. I've heard of this guy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Dr.
Yes.
John and Marie Laveau.
Yes, and so she's the next most famous one.
Yeah.
His shop was stocked with glass jars filled with swamp weeds, wildflowers, dried lizards, insect eggs, bird feather, carved bones from graveyards that were lucky, or from tombs, and amulets. He was also a healer, a mind reader, and did divination. And you can find him today in Silver Lake.
What?
At the House of Intuition.
Oh, yeah.
By the 1850s, he was eclipsed by Marie Laveau. She's probably profile worthy herself.
She was somebody that I tried to do 4 years ago.
Really?
And there's just
You don't know what's...
you don't know what's true, what's not, and so
Yeah.
much is fanfic. But it's definitely, if we were to do a potpourri,
Yeah.
there's enough there for a mini.
She was the one who popularized voodoo among the whites. Her charms were bought by gamblers, politicians, folks, bought magical tokens, poisoned crosses, and graveyard dirt, bones stolen from mausoleums, cursed chicken feathers. And they would also attend midnight ceremonies where voodoo was going on, and these often ended up in orgies.
Which is awesome.
On Sundays, there was a public event where slaves, free people of color, and whites all mingled as hundreds of dancers danced and people sang Creole lullabies.
Yeah, she was Marie Laveau was she was somebody that she kind of what Elvis did for black music to whites, she did
Like voodoo?
with voodoo for whites.
Yeah.
She what would you want to say, gentrified it a little bit?
Yeah.
But that's not all she did, but she did bring it to a wider audience, whiter and whiter.
Yes.
But there's also there's questions about did she pass her mantle on to a younger relative to extend what would have been her legend?
Yeah.
She lived 180 years.
Right.
That there might have been Marie Laveau as an elemental, a legend,
Right. Yeah.
immortal, Mr. Wayne,
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So at these events, there would be Creole lullaby calling Soleil Couché, and then this is from Sandland. The remaining revelers, both blacks and whites, now unobserved, because there would be groups would leave, and so the remaining people would take an oath to the serpent. The oath was, according to one observer, nothing but a string of barbarous epitaphs and penalties. What followed was something like a camp meeting, except that the eroticism was wholly overt. The king and queen of the ceremony would caress a large snake representing the god and begin to tremble. The other celebrants would touch them and begin to tremble as well. Gradually, everybody's movements became more violent and convulsive. They would sing, tear off their clothes, scream, and writhe around and grind each other and bite at each other until at last collapsed in exhaustion. Waking the next morning, one observer said, retaining but one thing firmly in their minds, the date of the next meeting. Pretty good time. And then late summer, every year would die down because people would be dying of cholera and yellowjack. And then they would have their Mardi Gras. And I'm saving that for the Patreon because their Mardi Gras is very different from, what's happening now. Now, in 1835, Mississippi became so scared of a possible slave revolt that the whites themselves revolted. By this point, many counties in Mississippi, the slave-to-white ratio was 50-1. And a 1935 pamphlet was authored by a man named Augustus Q. Walton. The title it's like a paragraph.
Such a fucking brat attack. This thing of
just
like, I mean, we're
so afraid of you getting fucking uppity. We're gonna get uppity, even though there's no evidence that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will not be replaced.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
I'll read the title because it's insane. A history of the detection, conviction, life, and designs of John A. Murrell, the great Western land pirate, together with his system of villainy and plan of exciting a Negro rebellion, and also a catalog of the names of 455 of his mystic clan fellows and followers, and a statement of their efforts for the destruction of Virgil A. Stewart, the young man who detected him, to which is added a biographical sketch of V.A. Stewart by Augustus Q. Walton. Now, Augustus Q. Walton certainly did not exist. It was the only thing that he ever put out. Most people believe that Virgil Stewart authored it. The pamphlet tells the story of Virgil Stewart tracking down and tricking a man named John Murrell into telling him about the Mystic Clan, which is supposedly a group of 455 citizens who were secretly forming a slave revolt in order to destroy towns, rob banks, and kill their enemies.
Yeah, not win their freedom.
Right. Now, there was a man named John Murrell. He was already in jail for slave stealing. And the man who testified against him was a man named Virgil Stewart. There were some real names in the pamphlet of the secret clan, or of the Mystic Clan, but the story itself was absolute bullshit. How could a conspiracy be kept so secret with so many people, and why would Muriel just tell this random stranger? Nonetheless, in the spring of 1835, the real Virgil Stewart decided to make money off the whole thing and went on a speaking tour, which he claimed the whole thing was true, and Muriel's arrest only accelerated it, and the revolt was going to happen July 4th, and people believed him. And from there, things went badly.
Happy 4th of July, everybody.
At this point, a lot of the slave owners and plantations of central Mississippi were absentee owners, spending as little as possible on security, just some white overseers, a bailiff, maybe a doctor. And the owners were trusting the geography to do the work of security. Their thinking was that since slaves knew they were trapped in the middle of an entirely hostile country with no way of ever returning home, they would give up, accept their situation, and settle into being docile and obedient laborers.
Home. Where's home?
Yeah.
So, of course, when they heard that slaves might revolt, they did what a normal a human-owning person would do. They beat them until they confessed, and then they hanged them.
Jesus
God.
fucking Christ.
There goes 20 grand down the drain.
The confessions were vague.
John, there goes your investment.
Shut the fuck.
There goes your
You're
investment.
putting on me what you just said, which is insane.
No, you bought this person
I did
as a sex slave, and you got fucking worried that they were fucking 24 of your best friends and cohorts.
No.
And then
I
you
was
murdered them, and
encouraging
there
it.
goes, that's a sunk cost, but
I was saying it's all happening. It's
Money
cunnilingus
down the drain.
under that big skirt.
Nope.
That's what I want.
Nope.
I
You
want-
paid money for that sex slave. You got fucking
I
jealous.
want a rotate.
Caught feelings.
I want it to be like a little carousel of people giving cunnilingus to a lady
Nope.
and powering a boat.
Nope. You fucking crashed your car.
See how he put that on me?
Yeah.
That is absolutely
Hey,
insane.
he kind of broke backed you.
He did. He did.
Welcome to Earth.
Now, the confessions were always vague. A slave may have heard some whisper of trouble coming and mentioned that a slave and that another slave would mention that to another slave. And then eventually slaves started realizing, when they were being tortured, that of course they were just going to die anyway.
Yeah.
And so at least one case, a slave made up a story saying that the plan was to slay all the whites except some of the most beautiful women who they intended to keep as wives.
Wow.
The white men had told him that they might do so and that he had already picked out one for himself and that he and his wife had a quarrel about having told her his intention.
It seems like that would be a point of consternation.
Yeah. Divide and conquer, man.
Yeah.
Even on your way out.
Yeah.
Sow discord amongst your owner.
Yeah. When when killing the slaves didn't satisfy the mobs, they started picking up white people they suspected of being in on it.
Whoa.
See what happens? You sow a little, you throw a wrench in the machinery on your way out, and the whites will fucking off themselves.
Joshua Cotton was seen trading with slaves. He was tortured, confessed under duress, given ostensibly a mock trial, and hanged. Another man named Albie Dean was known to associate with slaves and talk to them, and they thought he was only pretending to be a horse hunter. So they did the same. They tortured him and then hanged him.
He was actually a bee hunter.
Yeah.
I gotta hear more about these bee hunters on the Patreon.
Well, they were expert marksmen. Do you know to take the head off a bee? How good you have to be?
You gotta bend the bullet like McAvoy and Wanted.
And that's back when they were fucking bow and arrows, too.
Yeah,
So, like, to take the head off a bee with a bow and arrow.
Come on.
There was a man named Ruel Blake. He was a cotton gin wright, builder and repairman of them, and he had a slave who was named by another slave. Blake was allowed the courtesy of watching the interrogation. When he objected to the force of the flogging, he was told he could do it himself. When he did, the interrogators said his heart clearly wasn't in it and made him step aside and then went back to beating his slave.
Jesus Christ.
When the beating got worse, Blake said they would have to flog him if they wanted to keep this up, and then the man flogging made to whip him. Blake got in a fist fight with him.
Yeah, man. It's like, here's the thing. In this situation, that guy is beating up your property.
Yeah.
None of this is good.
No, none of this is good.
You could be mad for a number of just on a humanity level that this person is beating up another human being who's innocent and subjugated and through no fault of their own have been found in this situation. And also they're ruining your property.
Yeah.
You have every right to be mad at this person.
Yeah.
And beat the shit out of them for being a bad human being, only slightly worse than you currently are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got in a fist fight. Blake ran off. A bunch of kids ran after him and mocked him and were hooting at him. Blake tried to escape to Vicksburg, but the Vigilance Committee put up $500 reward signs up and down the river. Eventually, someone ratted on him. The committee brought him back. While he arrived, a mob tried to kill him, but they held a sham trial, found him guilty, and lynched him.
Yeah. These committees.
Well, with that kind of reward money, you could get your own sex.
They always sound so democratic, and you go like, it's just a mob that has decided.
What's more democratic than a mob?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there were like with a lot of the lynch courts, people who a lot of mobs were like, you didn't give them the right sentence. You didn't give them the sentence we wanted.
Wasn't hard enough.
So we'll kill them.
Yeah, we'll do.
There was one guy who was actually found innocent in a lynch court, and the mob still flogged him.
Well, it's like that thing of like shooting the guy through the windows.
Yes,
it's like
exactly.
going like, we don't even want the dignity of justice.
Yeah.
Like we are like, we've decided.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
fucking over.
Yeah. Now, on July 4th, no revolts happened. But on that day in
It's a holiday.
On that day in Vicksburg, a gambler got drunk. And
I know one revolt that happened on July 4th.
Yeah.
That's it, though.
But on July 4th in Vicksburg, a gambler got drunk and insulted and made a swing at a militia officer. He was thrown out of the area. He later went back looking for a fight. He was surrounded, whipped, tarred, and feathered. The crowds of revelers at parties that night heard a rumor that the gamblers at the riverfront were all planning revenge. So that night, a group in Vicksburg went to the riverfront and put up notices that all gamblers had to leave. A lot of them did. But then a rumor went around that the gamblers were actually part of the John Mural conspiracy.
Oh.
Any gamblers found on July 6th were arrested and most were hanged. As the gamblers and prostitutes fled Vicksburg, they started showing up at other places up and down the river, and the rumors showed up before they did. By mid-July, any stranger found in the interior of Mississippi was being detained. Preachers, commercial travelers, craftsmen. One man was hunting and was arrested for possession of a shotgun and gunpowder.
I'm just here to hunt bees. I'm a simple bee hunter.
Yeah.
Preachers too.
Yeah.
Like it's just like
Any stranger.
Some guy is like, I'm here to preach the word of God. It's like
You match the description.
Yeah. Of anybody.
You ain't a centaur, you ain't a mermaid, and you ain't a woman. You match the description.
The man hunting was arrested for possession of a shotgun and gunpowder. He was sentenced to a flogging, but a mob had gathered and found the sentence too lenient, so they seized him and hanged him.
Jesus Christ, man. River law.
This kept up, eventually spreading outside of the river valley. In 1835, Abraham Lincoln described it as such.
fucked up beyond all repair.
Man, it was fucked up. I'm telling you, it was fucked up.
Fuck, dude.
It's a rarely quoted Lincoln
Yeah.
quote.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's shorter and more poignant.
He's like, I'm telling you, it was all fucked up.
And I'll read you what he said after that. In the Mississippi case, they first commenced by hanging the regular gamblers. Next, Negroes suspected of conspiring to raise an insurrection were caught and hanged up in all parts of the state. Then white men, supposed to be in league with the Negroes. And finally, strangers from neighboring states going thither on business were, in many instances, subject to the same fate. Thus went this process of hanging from gamblers to Negroes to white citizens, and from these to strangers, till dead men were seen literally hanging from the boughs of trees upon every roadside, and in number almost sufficient to rival the native Spanish moss of the country.
This is Mad Max.
As drapery of the forest.
Drapery of the forest.
Yeah.
This is straight up Mad Max Fury River.
Now,
It is a thing where it's just like, if we find somebody, do you have our interests? If you don't, you're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't really even matter if they had interest.
No, it's just, hey, you are quenching the thirst for blood that we have.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Now, things cooled down in the fall, but these sorts of things would pop up again and again. And every year, the South would get more fearful of slave revolts. As calls for abolition increased, the South became more venomous. Legislation was passed that outlawed using the U.S. mail to distribute abolitionist literature. So even the U.S. government got involved and said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't spread abolitionist literature." And
Kind of like what they're doing with Pornhub.
yeah. And
That is a terrible comparison.
I mean,
I know, the Pornhub thing's worse. You're right.
and it should be said, the North was not a fervent abolitionist area. Many people felt the abolitionists were out of line.
Well, the radicals, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In some states, possessing any such abolitionist literature was a felony. Any person of color, free or slave, found with it was immediately put to death. And yet none of these actions calmed white society. It became a capital crime to teach slaves reading and writing.
Yeah.
Eventually, free people of color were banned from gathering. Some states forbade them from traveling in or out of the state. Some states expelled all free people of color, and some invalidated their freedom and had them arrested and resold. Eventually, Louisiana passed a law making it illegal for any state to be emancipated for any reason. And every few years, a new wave of panic would sweep through the South. In Virginia, it was a site of...
What do you mean emancipated for any reason?
You cannot free a slave at all.
Gotcha.
You
It's illegal.
buy it, you broke it, you buy it.
You broke back it, you buy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You buy dinner.
No refunds, dude. No takesies, backsies.
Every few years, a new wave of panic would sweep through the South. In Virginia, it was the site of slaves carrying shovels and pickaxes to work in the mines. In Texas, a major drought was believed to work of secret gangs. And then eventually, Lincoln was elected, and the rotted brains of the South, there was only one option left: to secede. Lincoln was the devil incarnate for abolitionism, according to them. Now, during the Civil War, the United States eventually took complete control of the river. It helped them win the Civil War,
Yeah, man.
especially conquering Vicksburg, which was like the last holdout. Once they got Vicksburg, the war was basically over.
Yeah.
In a matter of time. After the war, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers built levees, locks, and dams, lighthouses, and beacons on the shore. They ripped out the snags for the newly established Missouri River Commission. It was about this time, Sandlin writes, that people started going, the government can build things. They can do things for the society now.
Yeah.
And large barges replaced the steamboats.
Tell them large barge sent you. On a night not unlike this.
And when Mark Twain visited in 1882, he found the river lifeless and melancholy. And
He
life
decided to change his name.
Yeah.
years before. And by then, life around and on the river had been tamed. And the old Mississippi would not be seen again.
And we're all worse off
Yeah.
for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really that, like, anything like that. Is there, I mean, like...
No, I suppose not. I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean, nothing that was like, I mean, one, it's a natural feature,
Yeah.
and it's
But to traverse the country in that way...
in north to south as
Yeah.
well. You know, east to west is always, easier in terms of travel because you are you're on the same latitude.
Yeah.
And so like the crops are the same, the landscape is very, very similar, north to south is always like, that's why you don't see a lot of north to south empires across the world and throughout history.
Yeah.
So north to south is always like, you go from fucking freezing shit to fucking tropical shit.
Yeah.
Right? But east to west is always easier. And up until the end of this episode, it was untamed. Like it is a force of nature to be reckoned with, and you're at its mercy.
Yeah.
Until you get steam power or industry.
But also like
you said, I don't think there is anything similar to like, the Western frontier or the Rocky. Like, no, there's not other than oceans.
And
other than the ocean, there's nothing similar.
And for a country that really revels in its past, like we do,
which our past, which is insignificant.
Yes, really.
It's so small.
Yeah.
It's a thing you have to think about when you think about history in general, and you have to
there are park benches in Paris that are older than this country.
And China.
Oh, dude, China! Don't get us started on Asian history.
Yeah, but like it's the thing where you go like,
an unbroken empire that's 3,000 years long.
Yeah, like, and you go like, we're obsessed with 200 years of history. We are obsessed with that, and then you look at China and you go like, it's the thousands.
Yeah,
but in this regard, while we're doing, Civil War reenactments on the land in Georgia and stuff like that, we completely have abandoned the river life thing that was a huge part of the country's history.
Yeah,
and we're just like, you're not seeing any boats like being like, hey, remember the river?
Civil War reenactment boats?
River life reenactment boats?
I mean, but I mean, there are still steamboats.
There's some like, like, I don't want to say novelty, but there are like old-fashioned steamboats that still do those river, a lot of like riverboat casinos.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're on those rivers, you're
sort of outside of jurisdiction.
You're outside of certain jurisdictions, and you can have, casinos like that. Motion picture The Lady Killers by the Coen Brothers is a good one. Remake, Tom Hanks, Marlon Wayans, etc. But it's I don't know what your point was.
No, it's just a thing where it's like, it's a huge part of American history, and it's it's something that we're also fine with letting be bygone. And
I'm not fine with it.
No, I imagine the people living around those areas still have some.
Yeah, we all three of us grew up on the what we would call the liberal elite coasts.
Yes,
and not the Midwest.
Yeah.
So we don't. I don't know if we're qualified to make that judgment.
No, I think so, because also like Matt was saying in this profile, it's like it's a thing that goes from the North when it's an abolitionist culture. And then it's people having to adapt to get into a Southern culture where it's a farm slave thing. And they're just like, we're just looking out for ourselves. But also it has this own anarchistic quality to it. And they're going like...
well, it's the original Old West. It's the original West.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next time you would get something like that is when you would get into the New Mexico, Arizona, California, Colorado territories.
Right.
Nevada.
But the literal fluidity of it is a thing where you go...
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you go like, if you're a hustler...
The landscape itself is the mode of transportation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But you can be like, I know how to work these people here, and I know how to work these people here.
Yeah. It's something that I think maybe what you're getting at is, it's something that we haven't romanticized enough yet.
We haven't romanticized enough yet, and we've also very quickly forgotten about it when it was a very strong part of the character of the nation.
Yeah, it's a large economic driver, as much, if not more, than the railroad was.
Yeah, but
right?
also
Except people didn't have to build this.
But also that thing of importing ideas too. And like meeting different people from, because like I said, everybody's very settled and everybody's like, I got to protect this. But if you meet this guy from the river and he's saying this shit, like there is a fluidity. But that's why it was also...
I'm wondering if, because these people were so itinerant, there wasn't like, like the beginning of the episode has they'd fucking ride the water slide down and then they'd hide right back up. Because they were such a traveler culture. Like there's not a lot of gypsy missionaries.
Yeah.
They're not gypsies or traveling folk or Roma or whatever you want to call them. They weren't proselytes. They were just travelers. So they weren't vectors for ideas. There's not like great gypsy philosophers.
I disagree. I think
name one.
I think name one.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying this is the whole people's lifestyle.
Right, but what I'm saying
you're
is,
still gonna come in contact with those people and be like, well, up there they say this, and down here they say this, and like it's going to impact the society in some way.
There's a homogenization that is just natural that's happened over dialects being lost. I understand that.
There is something like natural about like being affected by some kind of person that is just passing through, and then it being threatening. And then you being like, okay, we don't even want you to come in here like with your different ideas. And that's why I think they were vilified so much.
I mean,
like river people.
Ideas, like in my opinion, informed. My informed.
Debatable.
That in itself is debatable.
We'll have a debate on Patreon. It's $5 a month.
Yeah,
we get an extra episode per week. And
I mean, it's gonna make Trump and Biden look like a. It's gonna make it look good.
Yeah.
Needless to say.
Yeah.
I guess I'm struggling to understand what your comparison is with like the so let me get what you're saying is we have forgotten about the importance of this particular
it's literally it's
route of ideas and goods.
Yes, it's literally a media. It's a media, and it's going like
medium.
Yeah, and it is a media because it's a thing where you go like somebody's been up there and now they're coming down here. And they're telling us about what's going on up there.
I wonder how much of that was actually happening because those people were all.
I think that's part of the vilification of those people and being like, we don't want river folk here because they're bringing shit in. I mean, some of it is they're just hustling us and they're like river gypsies.
But is that the case with every other version of that throughout history? Where like I think the fact that these people were so itinerant and so transient that like they're not getting a chance to stick around and be like, hey, you know what they're saying up north? Like these people are not sticking around to share ideas. They're stealing your wallet and selling you snake oil and leaving.
Yeah, I don't think it's that simple because they're not all doing that.
I think that was the point.
No, they're not all doing that.
But, I mean, some of them are. The river was definitely a way that news traveled.
Yeah, without a doubt, ideas travel.
Yeah.
Anytime people travel,
but
ideas
especially down there, like especially on the river.
At the time, yeah. I mean,
there was no other option.
Yeah,
yeah, and it was
and the speed with which it happened.
Yes, at that point, it was
the fastest way to go.
Yeah,
right.
It was just like it was. I think it opened some minds to being like
it had to have.
Yeah.
You can be like, hey, man, I can share my wife with 24 other guys.
Yeah. And it's,
all right.
Open my mind.
And
not
it's
just
also
that.
kind of uniquely American, too, because it
Open my mind and break my back.
It's very like, it's just straight commerce. You know what I mean?
But then, you have the Silk Road, which is like maybe the most important version of this in all of human history.
Mm-hmm.
That and the Colombian, the Colombian trade.
Yeah.
So it's not anything new, but it is something that's unique. It's the American version of that. But yeah, I think, and the next time you would have something so lawless and something so anarchistic and
quote
unquote free.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely free for those who were able to be free.
Sure, yeah.
And dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
What would be what we call the Old West.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a meth camp in the desert.
Right, but the thing is that with the Old West, it was determined by whoever decided to build train tracks wherever they decided to do it. Whereas with this situation, it was an ever-changing landscape of river run.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
But that's why it's also so American in a way. It's
What
like
is?
it not being manifest destiny and not being like you choose where you go. It being this thing of like discovering the wild. And
But isn't Manifest Destiny also American?
no, it's very American, but this is more like fragile. It's more vulnerable, and like the idea that like you could be like, okay, like what we do on the river, like it's and it's something we don't really replicate and celebrate.
Out there, it's their time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Down here,
but
it's
like
river time.
like at Disney, they try to have like the fucking like the boats going and shit.
Yeah,
like,
they got the river boat,
they're
and they
trying-
got the jungle cruise.
Yeah, they're trying to do that sort of stuff. So like there is celebration of it in the imagination of America. But it's not like replicated today. It's not as if there's like
there's not a lot of river. There
There's
isn't a
not, like-
genre of movie of riverboat action.
or even a tour you can do where you're like, okay, let's get on a fucking riverboat.
Well, I think there is. I think there are.
I assume the
There are.
Mississippi has
You
those.
you
yeah.
assume,
No,
but
there
you've
are.
never heard of it.
No, there are. There are riverboat tours. Absolutely.
Especially down
all the way down the
Mississippi.
Mississippi.
I mean,
I mean, you're not going to take a month and a half long tour.
Have you ever known anybody that's done it?
No, but I know there are tours. I know there are riverboat tours.
yeah,
You do.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
specifically on the Mississippi,
Yeah.
of course, absolutely.
I took
there
a
are.
boat tour in Massachusetts last year.
No, there are
Where
absolutely.
the hell did that go? In a fucking puddle?
They went to the Deerfield Dam.
Yeah, went there from Newton all the way to Westchester. No, there are. I mean, like this is what I was saying earlier: is that we're not Midwest people.
Yeah.
And so we're not totally qualified to comment on how much like
No, we're perfectly qualified. We're very Massachusetts, New York, California. We know what we're talking about. This
yeah,
shit.
Midwest through and through.
I spent 3 years in Chicago. I was in St. Louis when the river was flooding.
But do you understand what I mean? What I'm saying, like
there isn't this.
it's a huge part of American culture.
that has not been romanticized.
or like
it was romanticized in the time. Twain,
well, in the time it's
Twain
happening.
romanticized
Yeah,
it.
and he named himself because his name.
Yeah.
He went from Samuel Clemens to Mark Twain because of it.
Yeah,
But in modern,
yeah.
post cinema, post photography, and post cinema. I mean, literature definitely.
Sure.
A lot of the tall tales, all of the American folklore has a lot to do with.
and then how much were those tall tales like part of that? Like they were brought downstream.
Or upstream.
I mean, the modern tales of Davy Crockett were stories that
were passed along through the river.
yeah, and kind of based on the boastful talk of people on the river.
Yeah, it is something to consider why there hasn't been. This is the point that I'm focusing on. Is that it is something to consider why hasn't there been a commensurate romanticization and representation of the riverboat era
Yeah,
of American history as there was with the cowboy
yeah,
and the western.
Yeah.
and particularly in a time where it was pre-Civil War, because those people would be seeing both sides of the conflict.
Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, I imagine maybe a decent chunk has to do with the people who write and make movies live in California and the East Coast.
Yes, and also the idea
But
of,
it's
of
so-
the cowboy being the epitome of
Yes.
the individual, the power of the individual, and it also taking place during the Red Scare, and the individual taking precedence over the group or the collective or anything that has to do with a group of people or nature.
It would not be a good idea as an individual to ride the Mississippi in a keelboat or a log.
Exactly, exactly. That's
And
very, very interesting.
And the thing of like the person that would be traversing Mississippi and going from north to south and having to, kind of,
You'd have to do something like an American Odyssey. You'd have to do like an epic kind of story.
Yeah.
You couldn't do the story of a guy rolling into a town and dispensing his version of justice, all while maintaining aloofness. But and he's dangerous, but he's got a good fucking moral compass.
Well, that's the thing.
It
Is
can't
that
be Clint Eastwood. You'd have to have a much more like a Homeric Odyssey if you're going north to south.
Part of it is like while you're on the river, if you're not just being like totally selfish prick that is doing scams, if you have a moral compass during that time, and you're going north to south on the Mississippi, at some point you're being a coward because you're not saying what you think about what is right and wrong.
Right, because you have every opportunity to say what is wrong on the whole way down, baby.
Yeah, and that's why it's not.
I mean, you're letting 24 guys fuck your wife.
Yeah.
Who's a mermaid. And you're a centaur? I mean, where do you draw the line, pal?
I have horse legs.
And I've got a horse cock.
Yeah.
But I've got human face and arms.
And heart.
And
How do I wipe my ass?
And feelings.
Actually, they invented a thing for they could wipe their ass.
That's the Augbesian.
That's the
That's the
Augbesian.
Augbesian. It's a telescoping rod with two articulating fingers.
It's called an Aberration. It's
It's a telescoping
and it's
rod.
available at Walgreens. And Matt, that was a great profile.
Oh,
I
thank
really
you.
loved
Thank you.
that.
Thank
I
you.
really loved that.
Thank you.
And it inspired great convo.
Yes.
Yes.
I love the river relish.
And the river runs through it.
Yeah.
And me.
Gentlemen, I love you.
Love you too.
I'm going to say goodnight. My
I'm
name is
Aaron
John
Pita.
Fahey.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shit.
What the fuck are you?
He's on his own.
I gotta pee really bad.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm John Fahey. I love you.
I'm Aaron Pita. I love you. Happy 4th of July. Semper Fi.
Remember so good.
Good night, everybody. We love you.
Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.